evening. We're going to call our meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, March 15th, 2023. This is the Monroe Township Board of Education monthly meeting. We could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ms. Allen, may we please have a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Alvarez?
Here.
Ms. Belko?
Here.
Ms. Bierman?
Here.
Ms. Bora?
Here.
Ms. DePayne?
Here.
Ms. Fabiano?
Here.
Ms. Ratner?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Gerby?
Here.
Mr. Tufano?
Here.
Okay, all present. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published and electronic notice provided by having the date, time, and place thereof posted March 10th, 2023 at all schools, on the district website, Home News Tribune, Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Great, thank you. The next item on our agenda is our closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby goes into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subjects: harassment, intimidation, or bullying, matters protected by attorney-client privilege, collective negotiations. Following closed session, action may be taken. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Can I get a motion?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll be in closed session now, and we should be out by 7:15 on or about. Thank you. We're going to move back into the open session. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have our Public Board of Education meeting, January 25th, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any changes or corrections? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions or recusals? Okay. The next one is our closed session meeting, January 25th, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Do we have any changes or corrections? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions or recusals? Okay, the next one is our public board.
Just recusal on the part pertaining to negotiations.
Okay, so noted. The next one is the Public Board of Education meeting, February 15th, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second. Any changes or corrections? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions or recusals?
Abstain.
Okay, Ms. Ratner abstains. The last one, the closed session meeting, February 15th, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Okay. Any changes or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions or recusals?
Abstain.
Okay, Ms. Ratner abstains. Our next item on our agenda is our student board members' report. Good evening. We have both of our student board members here, Mr. Latapoli and Ms. Thacker. Whichever one wants to go first.
All right, good evening, everyone. So to start off with Applegarth would like to thank their PTA and their SEL committee for an exciting Read Across America week. The school enjoyed its guest readers and book giveaways, utilizing a donation from the school's 2021 to 2022 PTA. The school's STEM clubs are in full swing with coding and robotics. After-school chess instruction is happening with students from the high school showing younger students how to play the game. The school's student-led fish tank climate change competition begins the week of March 20th. The school is having a parent evening to view all submissions and to award the most innovative projects on Thursday, March 23rd. The school's PTA-sponsored book fair is happening on March 15th and 16th. Wellness Week is happening this week, March 13th to 17th. Activities include Motivational Monday, Take Care Tuesday, Workout Wednesday, Think Ahead Thursday, and Feel Good Friday. Wellness activities also include a Met's Culinary Management sponsored I Tried It, with a variety of healthy foods. Classes will be participating in a Makerspace showcase on the early dismissal day, March 17th. The McFoods Food Drive is being held this month. Food donations are being accepted from March 13th to 24th. The class that brings in the most food earns some extra points in our upcoming March Madness basketball tournament. Applegarth 4th grade is hosting a grade-wide STEAM carousel on Wednesday, March 15th. During Music in Schools Week from March 26th to March 31st, Applegarth will have a Music Ties Us Together Spirit Week. Activities include theme days including Classical Music Day, a night at the opera, Celebrating the Blues, and We Are Rockstars Day. As for Mill Lake, on March 3rd, Mill Lake School hosted a school-based referendum meeting where the public gleaned important district information. On March 3rd, Mill Lake celebrated Read Across America Day / Dr. Seuss Day with district readers and PTO members reading to their classes. On Tuesday, March 7th, the preschool participated in the District Unified program where lots of fun and learning happened. On March 8th, Mill Lake hosted a dentist assembly where students learned proper dental hygiene and care. Mill Lake is thrilled to be bringing back Evening of Reading on March 16th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. All children and their parents are welcome. Mill Lake Student Council, in conjunction with district and school advisors, created an exciting week to focus on Rare Diseases Awareness Day. The school is so excited to be working with the Woodland Mill Lake PTO on this global fundraiser. The Mill Lake Woodland PTO has been working hard this month. The Mill Lake Woodland Ice Skating event was on Saturday, March 11th at Pro Skate in North Brunswick from 5 to 7 p.m. The Favorite Fella Dance will take place on Friday, March 24th at Mill Lake from 7 to 8:30 p.m. As for the middle school, on March 10th, led by PE teacher Ms. Misty Drake, MTMS held its annual Hoops for Hearts fundraiser. This event raised almost $25,000, which was the second most in the country. On March 1st, MTMS hosted an engineering presentation to the students in their elective classes, who got a chance to meet with and ask questions to an engineer who is currently working in the industry. The MTMS administration held their third set of expectations meetings with all students to review the school's expectations of kindness and respect for all. In Woodland, Mrs. Hoskins, a special education teacher, brought her students to the STEM lab to give them an opportunity for creative play using the Lego wall incorporating math concepts. Ms. Heyer has proudly displayed a showcase of her students' artwork. Please visit the children's section of the library to check it out. Mrs. Duskovics and Ms. Heyer coordinated mindfulness activities in celebration of Random Acts of Kindness Week using Makerspace creating origami hearts. On Friday, March 3rd, Dr. Lehman read to the school in celebration of Read Across America. Mrs. Leung, general music teacher, and Ms. Zarelli, instructional band teacher, celebrated National Music in Our Schools Month with a School Spirit Week. Mr. Schultz, PE teacher, organized Jump Rope for Heart, raising over $5,000 and counting for the American Heart Association.
Thank you.
Over at Barkley Brook, the school celebrated Read Across America Week during the week of February 27th. On March 3rd, the students and the staff were invited to participate in the Theme Spirit Days, which were connected to one of Dr. Seuss's books. During the week of Read Across America, Ms. Chanley visited Barkley Brook and was a guest reader in 3 of their classrooms. The students truly enjoyed the visit. The Barkley Brook students were engaged in the Battle of Books during Read Across America Week. All classrooms were assigned books in advance, and during the battle, 2 classes competed against one another to answer questions about the books. And as the weeks progressed, each winning class competed against another winning class until they had a winner from each grade level. Barkley Brook participated in a Kindness Week, and last week when all students were encouraged to show kindness, gratitude, and encouragement both in the school as well as home. And students brought in canned goods for a food collection, and they helped at home and recorded each time they saw a classmate engaging in a random act of kindness. Students were challenged with noticing over 400 acts of kindness, and they far exceeded this goal. Over at Oak Tree on March 2nd as well as March 9th, the Makerspace Night for grade 2 as well as grade 3 as students and their parents were invited. On February 27th to March 3rd, Read Across America Spirit Days with guest readers on March 3rd. On March 13th to March 15th, the Colgate testing was done for grade 1 students and all new 2nd and 3rd grade students as well. Celebration Day happened on March 15th, where the school earned enough star tickets so classes can view the movie inside, out, as well as outside their classrooms. The film ties directly to our zones of regulation goals for this school year. The Grand Falloons Assembly was on March 17th, or is going to be on March 17th. The Scholastic Book Fair will be on March 21st to March 22nd. Kindergarten in-house field trip, music with famed songwriter and singer Mr. Ray will happen on March 24th. As also on March 24th, the One Book, One School will happen, where Miss Dinsmore reads the story Sam's Pet Temper to the entire school throughout the entire day. And March Madness, the basketball tournament, from March 29th, 30th, as well as March 31st. All classes will compete against one another. And on March 27th, the parents will have access to report cards, or they'll get the report cards. Over at Brookside, they'll do the Replenish Food Drive, which will be taking place from March 13th all the way to March 24th. The STEM Club is in its 4th week currently, and the students are doing an amazing job building their robots. They also had an excellent turnout for spring conferences, which occurred at the end of last month, February. And the Read Across America was also a huge success. The students participated in a week of themed days. Ms. Chanley also read to some of her 3rd and 4th grade classes, and Brookside's Unified PE is scheduled for the evening of next week, Thursday, March 23rd. And over here at the high school, the Choruses Program's Spring Coffee House will be held on March 16th, which is tomorrow. The statewide NJGPA testing is being administered for all MTHS juniors this week. The high school hosted its annual One Book Read, facilitated by the National English Honor Society in the Media Center back on Thursday, March 9th last week.
Great. Thank you very much for your updates. Very comprehensive of everything that's going on in our schools. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is our presentations. This evening we have our presentation and public hearing of the preliminary 2023-2024 school budget. I'll turn it over to the administration, Mrs. Chanley, Dr. Lehman, and Ms. Allen.
Thank you very much, Ms. Skirby. Good evening and welcome, everyone. In keeping with our protocol, every year we have our preliminary budget presentation. Tonight will be the preliminary budget presentation, and then the final budget presentation will be on April the 26th, also a Wednesday. So for this evening, I'm going to start out with just the discussion of the vision and mission, as well as our executive summary. Yeah, this is quite small. I can see it, it's okay. Thank you. So presentation this evening, I want to thank Dr. Lehman as well as Ms. Allen. We worked together, and it's very important, though, to note that putting together a budget with all of the constraints that we deal with is a very difficult task, and I think Ms. Allen did a fantastic job, and I just wanted to give her a shout out in all the hard work that she did to bring this presentation to everyone this evening. So our vision statement, which is available right there as we click. Thank you very much. I apologize, I went out of order. So our members of the Board of Education are here for you. I'm not going to read you the names. They sit in front of you. They are all volunteers, so I want to say that we greatly appreciate their time and their efforts as they come here and they work tirelessly, not just on a Wednesday evening, but all throughout the month as they question and they ask and they look for answers to make sure that they're making good decisions on behalf of the public. Well, I think you do deserve a round of applause. I like that. That works. For the Finance Committee members, we have Ms. Karen Bierman as our chairperson, Ms. Belko, our vice chair, Ms. Gail DePayne, as well as Chrissy Skirby, who sits in as ex officio. Our vision statement, Monroe Township Board of Education commits itself to all children by preparing them to reach their full potential and to function in a global society through a preeminent education. Coincides with our vision statement is our mission statement. What are we going to do to make sure we meet the needs of that vision? The Monroe Public Schools, in collaboration with the members of the community, shall ensure that all children receive an exemplary education by well-trained, committed staff in a safe and orderly environment. I'd like to acknowledge we have many of our staff members here in the back. They are those people who make sure those things happen, so I did want to give a shout out as well to all of the individuals that are here tonight, our staff members. An executive summary which is directly related to this preliminary budget presentation. The The Monroe Township School budget for the 2023-2024 school year was developed within specific parameters set forth by the board's philosophy directive to prepare a comprehensive budget within very tight revenue constraints, meeting the needs of a population of 7,005 students. The budget has been professionally constructed to afford every student an opportunity for an exemplary education by well-trained, committed staff in a safe and secure environment. Opportunity is made available through a comprehensive curriculum which offers diverse course offerings and co-curricular clubs and activities. We believe that our proposed budget continues to become more efficient, as evidenced by a successful county budget efficiency review, whereas Monroe was exemplified for many best financial practices. Key budgetary considerations: aging facilities, increased enrollment, New Jersey student and learning standards, student-to-teacher ratio, and of course, the tax impact on our community. Budget creation timeline: we had the establishment of a budget philosophy, enrollment patterns and projections, of course, review of staffing needs with all of the individual areas, principals, and so on and so forth, and supervisors and directors, budget development, budget defense rounds, where those individuals came, sat with us, Ms. Allen, myself, Dr. Lehman. We had the conversations about the wants, the needs, and the must-haves. Governor's budget address, where we waited to hear what the budget would be and the amount of monies that we would receive through the governor's address, which in turn was the award of the state aid, adoption of the tentative budget, and our public hearing, which tonight is one, and the next one, of course, will be on April 26th. What's included in this budget? Personnel and instructional resources: 3 self-contained classroom teachers, 3 self-contained classroom paraprofessionals, 1 in-class resource teacher, 2 in-class resource paraprofessionals, 1 teacher of, 1 ESL teacher, 1 BCBA, 2 bus drivers, 2 transportation aides, textbooks, and technology. Should have made this a little larger. Continue with what's included in this budget: capital improvements, replace district-wide telephone system, replace a chiller and rooftop units at Monroe Township Middle School, design of the automatic temperature control system for 3 schools, transportation recommended fleet replacements for safety and enrollment growth, 6 54-passenger buses with cameras, 2 20-passenger vans with cameras, all are required by statute and board policy to be replaced due to age restrictions. And I believe we're going to start with number 11, where Ms. Allen will take over. And all the information that we've shared, we have made copies for you this evening. If we run out of copies, once the presentation is finished this evening, we will make sure that it is provided to you on our website. Thank you.
Okay. So where does the money come from? The majority of the money, 83%, can you hear me? Okay. Comes from local taxes. Okay. The state aid is 7.64% of the total revenue that we've received, and the balance would come from miscellaneous revenue, transportation fees, tuition, extraordinary aid, federal aid, and fund balance, and transfers from another fund. They make up a small portion, but the majority is the tax and really the taxes and the state aid. The general fund tax levy. So this is based on the prior year, which was $112 million, and we are only allowed to inflate it by 2% in this year's budget, which brings it to $114 million that we can use as a revenue source, and that is an increase of $2.2 million. And that is the most that we can increase the tax levy. So general fund state aid. This year, For 23-24, we have received an increase in our general fund state aid of $1.5 million, which is a 16% increase over the previous year's state aid. Equalization aid, we get nothing. Categorical aid, which consists of special education aid, we received $7.2 million. We will receive $7.2 million. Special education, we will receive, I think this is off. Our security aid, we will receive $636,000, and transportation aid is $3.2 million. So the grand total of general fund state aid is $11 million. So next we have our sources of revenue, which is on Schedule A, and that shows you every revenue, the breakdown of all of the revenues, with a comparison from last year's revenues, which is the current year, and it shows the dollar difference and the percentage difference. So you can see the tax levy, the tuition that we receive from Jamesburg, which remains the same. We have transportation fees that we also receive from Jamesburg, which is higher than it was for this year. There's also miscellaneous revenue in there for $805,000, which is mostly interest, tuition from the preschool integrated program, the summer program, advertising, and some other miscellaneous revenue sources. And then we have all of our state aid. Included in the state aid, which is extraordinary aid, is not something that we ever know how much we're going to get. So we try to base it on, we don't increase it too much because we don't want to fall short. And you can see the other state aid sources. We have federal aid from Medicaid, from the SEMI program, of $84,000, or $88,000 rather. We have a fund balance budgeted of $5.4 million. And there's a withdrawal from the unemployment fund, which we will use, of $100,000, and transfers from other funds, which would be the Falcon Care program, which we expect to be able to use the money from their profit, the revenues that they generate. So the operating budget is $137 million. The Fund 20, which is the federal and state grants, is $1.3 million. And then we have our debt service aid, or our debt service fund, which is $10,999,000, for a grand total of $149,000 of revenues. Okay. Compared to last year of $148.8 million. Okay. So that's our revenues. We also have attached an appropriation detail schedule, which lists every budget line item that we have. And again, it shows both years, the current year and next year's budget, and the difference in dollars and percent. And most of the items are pretty much, there's not too much of a change in them unless there's a good reason. So certain costs have just really gone up: transportation, special education, insurance, and other items have gone up quite a bit. So I'm not going to go through each line, but there are some, I think, some items. If you have questions on them, you can ask. So that is the detailed appropriation schedule. The next page is really just a pie chart of where the money goes. Most of it is instructional, 53% is instructional, special education, related services, and tuition. Benefits account for 20.44% of our budget. Debt service payments would be 7.34% of our total budget. And facilities is 7.93%. Transportation is 6.16%. And there's other categories in there that are included. Okay. So what factors influence the tax rate? State aid. The lack of state aid influences the tax rate because we have to fund our budget with more of your taxes instead of state aid. The fund balance that we apply is basically due to efficient spending. If we don't spend everything, then we can recycle it back into the next budget, into a future budget. Ratables for this year, for 23-24, have increased $106 million, which is a 1.41% increase over the previous year. And the other factor influencing the tax rate is the increased student enrollment, because we don't get any more money because of the increased enrollment. So we have to spend only what we have, but we have more students to spend it on. Okay. These numbers have been provided by the municipality. The school district average assessed tax levy impact. So for this year, the average tax increase on an average assessed home of $331,000 is $33.17, which is a 1 cent increase. And that is the presentation.
Okay, I want to open it up to board members first with any questions. Ms. Fabiana?
Sorry, I just have, just for the public, on the page 9 where it lists, ICR teacher, ESL teacher, and BCBA, if we could just spell out what those are, just for the public. I know there was some question about acronyms.
So ICR is an in-class resource teacher. A BCBA is a behavior specialist that we work with within the district. I don't know if there's any other. ESL, English is a second language, ESL.
Any other board members? Ms. Bora?
What's included in the budget for capital improvements? We had a discussion in BGT that if the referendum fails, we will be looking at replacing the roof at Applegard. I do not see that listed here. And I don't think that is an option anymore. So why are we not discussing Applegard's roof in our budget? And I know you guys have been working on it in the past week, and we were hoping that this is going to, but when we are discussing it today.
Right, so now that we have no referendum, everything comes out of the operating budget. Mr. Tague is here if we needed him to expand, but I believe it's my understanding that the roof project would be a total of $3 million. And does that sound correct? Am I close? Thank you. I know I'm quoted quite often, so around, approximately, in the neighborhood of. And at this time, when we got that information last night, we are not in a position financially to add that into the current budget. What that means is we're gonna have to sit down and have conversations and bring it to BG&T of what it looks like in areas of the roof, sections. I don't really know what we can say, but at this time, it could not be put in this budget.
So, and pardon me, I'm still a layman at this, so between now and when we finally, this is the tentative budget, April before we vote, is there an opportunity? I know it's been a tough year with the numbers, but I just, as a board member, I feel like knowing this is going to be our urgent need, given that the roof is leaking, And we did discuss that this is going to become a priority whether or not the referendum passes. If we don't have it written somewhere in this budget, then we're not true to our words. So between now and April, can we put it somewhere in black and white?
So in order to have a balanced budget, as you know, we would have to remove other either programming, staff. I don't know what else we would remove, but I don't want to speak unilaterally for, all of us. I want to have a conversation with Mr. Chaik to see if we have other options, as well as Dr. Lehman and Ms. Allen. I think that would be appropriate. And we do have a BG&T meeting that does exist prior to the next Board of Education meeting. I think it would be appropriate. I don't know if that's an aggregate for the whole roof or so forth, and I don't know if we have options as we have in the past about sections as we did in the middle school. He's shaking his head yes. So that might be an opportunity to look at the area that's specifically leaking that we just dealt with recently and perhaps move things around and make some changes. So yes, between the final presentation, I will say yes, we will do our due diligence to look at that and to see what can be done, and perhaps there might be a section or an area or something else that we can utilize, and then we'd have to look to see what would have to be removed then. And then we would bring it back, of course.
Just a follow-up to that, is there a line item in the budget for capital improvements where, if it's not listed in the presentation, possibly, is it I didn't see them in here listed by
so
actual.
Yeah, there is, the last page of the appropriations, actually it starts on, the last page would be the capital outlay section. The only thing we have budgeted in there really is the $75,000 for the temperature control, the design stage of that to take place. The rest of the items on this list, we will be able to put into a lease purchase, a 5-year lease purchase. So the telephone system and the chiller and rooftop units we can include in the lease purchase. So they're not in the capital outlay section of the budget, because they're in a different account for the lease purchase payments.
Ms. Bierman, do you have a question?
Couple. Okay, so to tag on, I did have the same question as Ms. Bora had about the absence of Applegarth School and capital improvements being there, particularly the roof, and the impact of the referendum failure on the budget. So other than Applegarth, is there anything else, that the failure of that referendum puts this budget under the microscope again? Because obviously we only found out about the failure of the budget last night. We're here tonight looking at the preliminary, so there may be this pivot that's going to have to happen between now and April, but certainly we have to do our due diligence tonight in addressing what other concerns district administration may have concerning the failure of the referendum and the impact of the budget. So there's that question. The next question would be, I'm happy to hear, I was going to ask about the phone system. I knew that was a big ticket number, 800,000, something in that neighborhood. That going on lease purchase alleviates the burden from the budget, so district is still able to realize that benefit without the burden of having to draw down from the general fund in one big shot in next year's budget. And then the last thing I want to help myself understand and everybody else, I struggle with this every year, is that budgeted fund balance and how that recycles back in. So when we look at the current year's budget, we had the $6,756,130 in there. Next year it goes down by 19%. That 1.3 million is money, the difference of the money that we didn't spend this year that then can roll forward into not next year's budget, but the following year? Or how does it work?
So what we just received our audit report and for June 30th of 22. So the excess surplus in there can be used in this budget, 23-24.
So
it's
that's the
year after.
5,462.
Yes.
Okay.
So anything, if we end up with a good year this year, and we can build up our surplus and then, and try to find ways to spend less, really, we can try to build up our surplus.
So currently, that surplus is counted as a revenue source in next year's anticipated budget.
Yes.
If we spend all the other revenue and dip into it, we'll have, when we do next year's audit, that number will be smaller, it'll shrink, and then the following year's budget would have less of that surplus that we can build in. We sort of rely on that surplus to buffer and bolster the gap that falls between expenses and growth that exceed 2% cap max. From a tax levy, we're getting modest increases. I'll say modest because 15% is a decent increase in the state aid, though still proportionately not a big player in our budget, as the revenue sources from our enterprise funds are not big players. We want them, we need them, we're fostering them, we're looking for every penny counts, because we'd rather have those revenue sources and use that money strategically where needed in the district than not have it at all. But they're still not competing with the tax levy.
Right.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes, I had a couple of questions. First of all, thank you for putting this together. I wanted to find out, and I know there was some concern or issues with the video this month, and I know you sent something out this afternoon. Was this something that was discussed and adopted by the Finance Committee before? Because I see the Finance Committee is in the presentation. I wasn't sure if this was something that was discussed there first.
We were only able to have a broad stroke conversation about an update to the budget, which at that time, and I'll get to my Finance Committee report later, but at that time was that they were still bridging the gap. They were not in budget, in balance yet, couldn't publish yet, and Finance Committee saw the appropriations and revenues schedules at the same time as all the other board members. So we couldn't get into any nitty-gritty, only big picture concept that year after year, and before leading into COVID, the situation was we were depleting the surplus, we were struggling with the 2%, it wasn't enough, expenditures are exceeding, the pace of expenditures is exceeding the pace of revenue. It becomes a struggle. I mean, we are in a struggle. Passing the referendum, of course, would have given a little bit of relief. We're not going to have that. We don't know where we're going from here with that. It's too early to tell or predict or guess. So we're going to have to start looking at options of how are we going to bridge this gap if we want to maintain services. Either revenue has to increase or expenditures have to decrease. We have to stay in balance. So one of the things is the 2% cap. Just may not be enough anymore, and other districts that find themselves in that position, that budget goes out for vote, for public vote, where they can exceed the 2% cap. And so this district may be finding itself in a position that that's the path we're on, which is fine. Many districts do that. So the Finance Committee did, as a result of our budget conversation, request the district administration to research that, investigate what a transition over into a transition to a public vote on the budget will bring for future years. This year, we're still okay. I mean, there's certainly big ticket items we'd like to do that we just don't have the money to do. But
needs response.
We're not cutting programming. We're not cutting services. Everything is still stable for the year ahead.
Okay. So to follow up, and I had three questions, two more questions. I know that you guys, meet with the supervisors and, administrators to sort of do the budget defense rounds. And, I noticed what's included in this budget. And, like all board members, we have to be careful about what we say. So let me start by saying I believe special education is extremely important. My mother is a special education teacher for 20 years. I have family members who receive special, services from special education. However, I was looking at the mission statement, which says that it's to commit to all students. And I believe, I forget if it was the curriculum committee or at last month's board meeting, Ms. Belko actually made an excellent point how we have to really look at the children in the middle. And, I fully agree. We have to, really service all children, right? We do a great job, I believe, with, up top, at the bottom, if you will. We really want to address all kids. And I guess when I was looking at this, it seems, heavy to one side. At the same time, also looking at the state funds that we are getting, I realize that majority of them are for special education. And so, to that extent, I wanted to know if this is the way it is because it's mandated that we use those funds for this purpose, or if this is because this is what came out of those discussions.
So the needs for a full-time equivalent, which is what we call an FTE, if you'll notice that we have special education, that is completely driven by the program, completely driven by the IEP. So once we meet a certain max in our classes, whether they be self-contained or in-class resource, whatever the programs deem we need, we have to put in. As you can see through the fact that we don't have additional FTEs other than the special education, we are trying to be extremely lean and to work with what we have because we did not have the financial ability to put in the extra full-time equivalent teachers that we have in the past. And one of the concerns that we had was we knew that we had to do what we had to do for special education because when we meet with our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, Ms. Ruella, and she comes and meets with us and says, this is our projected need for this program, that program, regardless of what building may house it, this is what we have to have, this is what we have coming, this is what is moving forward. That is what the need was.
Okay. The other two questions, and these are much more short, so I'll just ask together, is I know that the Jamesburg tuition agreement was expiring or close to expiring. I was curious when it expires and if that's something that is, renewed. And then I also just wanted to find out if there is an increase in health benefit cost and if that's in what we're getting now. Those were the other two questions.
Right. So regarding Jamesburg, the agreement is going to expire as soon as the amount is paid off. Jamesburg basically is paying us an additional amount every year over what they should be to try to bring the debt down. And this year, I think it came down $300,000. So
it's about $600,000 that's owed.
So there's, I think it might be even less that's owed still at this point. I think maybe $400,000. So possibly next year or in 2 years, it could be all paid off, and then that'll end it. But it's a matter of just getting to that point where it's zero.
So just for
You're
clarity,
asking about the tuition cost itself.
yes, thank you. Not what was already owed, but do we receive tuition
Yes.
for the high school students?
yes,
And is
yes.
that in
That's
Yes.
the 4...
1.4 million for tuition from the high school, or from Jamesburg, is on my schedule. So it's total tuition. The 4.2 million dollars.
Yeah, the $4,262,000.
Okay.
And we've kept that pretty much the same for the last few years, the same amount.
And just with that, with the state, because I know they look at, the district factor group and things like that, and I realize, Jamesburg is its own district and Monroe is its own district. Do the Jamesburg students that go to our high school, are they considered, are they utilized for our state aid calculation? And if that's the case, but there's the tuition as well, I guess that's where I was a little bit confused on that.
Are they used for our state aid?
Right.
No, because we would get our own state aid based on... You're talking about how much the percentage that the state funds the district?
Right.
No, because we get paid based on our state aid that goes to Jamesburg.
Okay.
We pay a tuition for our students to go to the high school. The aid goes based on Monroe's district.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then just the last thing was just the health benefits, if it was incorporated into what we're seeing.
Yes, it is in here. Health benefits reflects some reasonable assumptions as to how we can achieve some health insurance savings. However, because we are in a collective or negotiations with MTA right now, we cannot really discuss that. We cannot discuss anything affecting negotiations. Other than there is an amount in there in the budget right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Payne?
Yeah, I had a question, I think for Mr. Tay. I remember a couple meetings ago or a meeting ago, I think someone from the public, I should go through you, sorry. Someone from the public asked if the referendum was not approved, would the roofs that need to be fixed at Applegarth be done? And correct me, Mr. Tay, but I think you said yes, the ones that need to be done would be done. Am I right or wrong? Wrong? Okay, I just remember something and somebody saying that even though it went down, the roofs would still be done, but maybe I was dreaming. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions on the budget?
I do, sorry.
Ms. Bohr?
Is it okay if I ask about a few appropriations line items to understand them? I think the first one is the bilingual. I want to understand, is it that our bilingual population has increased? We're hiring an additional teaching resource, and that's why that line item is higher than the previous years. There was something called as other purchase property services that we are almost assigning $350,000 more to. I want to understand what that line item is. Other purchase property services. This is page number 5 in the appropriations, almost towards the bottom. Other purchase property services.
Okay. There's different, that's under pretty much every category. So which category are you looking at?
This is total undistributed expenditure custodial services. I believe that would be the categories at the very bottom, right? It totals into the bottom? Yes. So it'll be custodial services.
Okay.
It's 357,000 more than the previous year.
I don't see where it's 350.
You don't see it? No.
What is the budget amount?
The budgeted amount is $798,897.
This is on revenue?
No, appropriations.
Okay.
Oh,
Appropriations, page number 1.
Oh, okay, I got it. Sorry,
5.
thank you.
Yes, it's page number 5.
Yeah, that is, in that line item, we include any lease purchase payments that are related to facilities. So this year, that was a big hit on the way the payment schedule is for the lease, because we have lease purchases every year, and they're 5-year schedules. So this was a big hit for this year, just because of the way the payment schedule worked out.
Okay, so
that's why that went up so much.
Is that how it is? Like every few years we take a hit?
Yeah, and it depends on what we purchase. If we don't normally purchase that much for facilities, but now we are trying to take advantage of that so we can get things done in facilities. But normally it's like technology and stuff. So that is why that line item is so high.
So there is another similar, I think that total line item is total undistributed expenditures, operations, and maintenance of. Is that what includes the HVAC, the chiller and rooftop units? Where would that, there's a $576,000.
Right, and that's going to be lease purchase, so that would not, that's not in here.
That's not in the
That wouldn't even
appropriation.
be
Okay,
in
that's
here,
separately
Right.
accounted.
It'll be in future budgets.
Yeah.
So there is an increase of $500,000 in that category, which is now page 6, I believe. Expenditure, operational, and it gets cut, so I can't read the whole thing. Expenditure, operational, and maintenance of PLA.
Plant.
And it's a $500,000, so I wanted to understand what is it that we're doing different.
Okay. I'm not sure which line you're looking at.
Midway down over total security.
Over security.
It looks like there's a blank.
Looks like maintenance of plant. Could be plant.
I could move on to the next question, and I could get clarification from you on that later. Just the last page of appropriations. If you could explain, what is it that we're doing differently this year with the federal projects and the special revenue funds that we have, a difference of?
Okay, so in the previous 2 years, we've gotten a lot of the money for COVID grants, ESSER funds and such. So now that's pretty much going away. We're spending the last of it. So next year, we're not going to be getting any more of that. We'll be back to our normal grants that we would get. So that's why you see such a
Okay.
big decrease.
So this is all the COVID grant
Yes.
that we,
Yep.
okay. And Mrs. Kirby, but if I have a question on the resolution, do I ask that now, or do I ask that later?
I think when it's read, you can ask them.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any? Ms. Bierman?
One more quick one. So the slide that had the capital improvements and the buses, the vehicles were on there, will that be lease purchase, or that's,
Yes.
because that's not in a line
That's
item,
lease
so that's going
purchase.
to also be lease purchase?
Yep. We always
Thank you.
lease purchase the buses. Yep.
So to go back to Gail's point, I know we did have that discussion, not that we would absolutely do it, but it would be a discussion of the board and the administration if they would recommend doing it. If it is the recommendation of the administration to replace the roof at Applegarth, because we know it needs to be done, how will that be addressed in this budget or as a capital project? Mr. Tague, if you could answer that?
Good evening. What I can offer is that, should the board decide to go ahead with this, the design process for that would not be able to start until July 1st, which is the new fiscal year. You would not be able to design that, get through the state, and have it constructed this summer. So the monies you would be looking at in the 23-24 budget, should you decide to go ahead, would simply be for design. I can also tell you that if you do decide to go that way, since this is renovation work, you would be eligible for ROD grant money, and you could get a substantial ROD grant towards that project.
Okay, so could that be something that if the board wants, that we can include that monies to be included into, for the cost of the design for
Yeah,
the?
you have to.
Is anybody opposed to that?
Do we need to make a motion for that, or is that just an addition, a suggestion?
No, you don't need to.
This
make a
is
motion.
preliminary
This is the
budget, so we
preliminary
should be
budget,
able to-
right.
So I'll acknowledge that we'll have a conversation with Mr. Tague, Dr. Lehman, myself, and Ms. Allen to look at design cost beginning in July 1st of 2023, so that we can move forward with what we need to do with the roof, and include it on April 26th.
Ms. Ratner?
I just had two other questions as Ms. Bora was sort of, having us look through those costs and revenue. And so I guess my first is the trailers, because if I recall, there's a 5-year limit. Obviously, we're going to need them. Is that something that we need to renew with the state? Is that something that, obviously we have to pay for them again, but I was curious because we all know that they're a temporary housing unit and we're only supposed to have them for 5 years. COVID obviously got in the way of that to an extent. So that was my first one. And then the second one was sort of, Ms. Bierman had brought up, we need to look for more, revenue, to sort of offset the expenses. I do recall at one point that we were looking into Falcon Care, not the actual before, like an after-school programs, but trying to bring in additional revenue. And I was curious if that is something that is in here, because it's more of just like an overall line item. So I was wondering if that is in there or not.
Yeah, so we are looking at expanding after-school enrichment through a Falcon Care program. We're looking at expanding the summer programming. That's all, a potential revenue source. But to make a reasonable assumption of hundreds of thousands of dollars for something like that, it would not be responsible. So, especially since they're not something that's existing as a revenue source that we could even bump up. So, Falcon Care and things are included in the budget, but we will have our first blush this summer at the cost associated with the summer programming, potential expansion of that program, as well as expansion of the kind of offerings with Falcon Care. So as that materializes, I would expect to see things like that embedded in the budget moving forward as anticipated revenue sources. But in terms of a huge blow up of that program, I don't think it would be responsible to count on money that we've never even actualized yet.
Regarding your first question, I had this conversation this morning in my office with Mr. Tague. So we are required every 5 years to put forth to the state our long-range facilities plan. We just did our long-range facilities plan. So within that long-range facilities plan, we do have the trailers. Trailers are not supposed to be a permanent fix. It's supposed to be a temporary fix. That's why they're called temporary housing units. However, we are we will be permitted to keep them beyond the 5 years, but we would then have to fill out the appropriate paperwork, do whatever needs to be done, whatever Mr. Tague needs to do, and always does, and we go ahead and, with board approvals, would be able to keep them. Because the conversation I had this morning is, are we going to be okay now that we know at present we have 10 temporary classroom units in front of the middle school, and we had this exact conversation. So for now and for the immediate future of the 5 years, we are completely fine with those trailers in front of the middle school. But that was a good question.
Ms. Belko.
So because I'm hearing that we want to sort of add things to our budget, which we're already unbalanced with. I mean, we've gotten a fairly decent preliminary balanced budget here, but now we're talking about adding things. So I'm looking at the fund balance, which I kind of look at as sort of a savings account. And in my calculations, if we continue to tap into this over the next 4 years, the money's gone. And although we're talking about the 2023-2024 budget, we need to be thinking about 24-25, 25-26, 26-27. We would be remiss in our duties to look at that, and we can't just keep hitting that. So we really have to, and I know that this budget doesn't cut programs, it doesn't cut salaries, it doesn't cut teachers, but we have to be really frugal at this point, because some of the things that we were looking to fix and repair, it's not going to come to fruition, at least in this, in this next year. So, we need to be cautious about putting anything in there, and we need to be cautious about, trying to find revenue in other places, because it just, we can never predict the future. And we're no longer getting funds for COVID. COVID is over, and the government, that comes out of our tax dollars too, right? So we have to be very cautious here. And I think we should err on the side of caution in this budget year and while we're doing this. So I really think that we need to take this preliminary budget, review it before it comes back to us as a final budget, and really scrutinize what it is we're spending our money on. That's my comment. I'm just concerned we're not going to have this fund balance anymore. And that's really sad. That would be, we don't even have 4 months worth of bills to pay in the bank, if you look at this. And that's the bare minimum that anybody should have in the bank. You and I in our homes. My commentary.
Yeah, and I think that's where the Finance Committee, where we had that conversation that Karen mentioned about in evaluating going back to a public vote of the budget where you can go over the 2% cap. And unfortunately, if we have to take on the capital improvements and we can't pass a referendum to go out to the public for that to pay for, we have to do something. And like you said, we can't bring that fund down to zero. It would be irresponsible, as you said. So I agree with you, Ms. Belko. Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Payne?
Yeah, you're talking about bringing it back to overcap and back out to the public vote. You want to explain to the public how that works? If it goes out to public vote and it's not voted in?
At this time, we, at the Finance Committee, asked the administration to research that, to consult with the people who know that information and come back to the Finance Committee next month with that information, so that we'll start disseminating out there. We don't currently own that information to share.
I'm on finance and I understand that, but I've been on a board where years ago you did not have cap, and you had to put the budget out to the public, and it was turned down.
Right, so we're exploring it
Right.
as an opportunity, and ask the administration to come to us with that information where we'll have those discussions.
Right. But it does, if it's turned down, it goes to the mayor of the town and the Board of Education.
We are going to get the information from the professionals that are current and able to provide how it works today for us, not 20 years ago.
Right. And this is not,
and we'll find out.
This is not part of this budget, but that is something that we have to have discussions as a board of. So
Right.
does anybody have any other questions
I think the
on this
public should
budget?
know what happens when that happens, when we get the information.
Well, we will have those discussions.
Right. No, I understand.
Right now, we're having our discussion on the budget for next year. Ms. Ratner?
Just to follow up on that, and I understand what you're saying, should we decide to put, let's say, the Applegarth Youth program or something where it may require us to go over that cap And that's something that I'm assuming we would be voting on next month in the final budget hearing. Is it possible for us, it would not be?
No.
Okay.
So this year's budget has to be submitted balanced.
Okay.
We don't have, to the revenue
So the-
sources that we anticipate, which is the 2% cap that we voted to go on when we did the philosophy.
So that would be the following year?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody have any other questions on this budget? Okay, I believe at this time, we will have our public hearing on the budget. Anybody who has any questions can come up. This is a public hearing on the budget, and it must adhere to the budget items. You have 4 minutes. Please state your name and municipality. Good evening.
Pradeep Melam, Monroe Township. The first question is like, in the last few years, did our budget like went up 2% every year or not? If it didn't went up, like we have some way to recoup that money and then like use that to increase the budget. That's my first question. The second, the remaining is like comments. So I would like the board to convince the administration to take up the Applegarth roof, at least if not 100% of the roof, but whatever is on the tarp line, on the last lifeline, we would like to replace that or fix it as soon as possible. The second comment is like the technology is pending. Currently we are recycling iPads every 3 years, and then we are selling a quarter for $1. So, but if we can if we can use it like one more cycle, like 6 years or 5 years, we will sell it for like probably a dime or nickel. It won't be impacting our budget much, but like if you can save that, extend the, because iPad is iPad, like it works for like 8 years, 10 years, but at least for 6 years it gets the updates and everything. So at least the security wise, the cyber security wise, or any attacks or anything that malware or anything that we can protect the kid's device for 6 years at least, and then we can save some money on that one. And on the facilities, in the where the money goes, the facilities will go for 11,876,000 on the page 15. So if any emergency, like any roof or anything that comes, so are we going to play within, we should play within that money, or do we have any other money, any contingencies we have other than the facilities 11 million?
I think the first question that you had asked was about going up to cap, increasing the budget 2% each year. I'm not sure what the question was.
The question is like, suppose if 2021 or 21-22, because of COVID, we didn't increase our budget to 2%. So we stay at 100, 100, 100. Now we are going 100 to 102 because of the 2%, just an example. But in 3 years or last 2 years, we didn't go from 1 to 102 and 102 to 104 point something and 104 to 106 point something. So because we didn't go over the budget last couple of years, so can we take that money and then like put it into our like current budget?
Yeah, Laura, if you wanted to.
Right.
That's what
No,
that
we-
general fund balance is.
Right, so yeah, we use our cap,
Every year?
and if any, yeah, we do use our cap every year.
Okay.
If we didn't, we could,
Yeah, there is some technical term I forgot, but we can recoup that money into the current budget.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any comments on Applegarth roof or like?
The Applegarth group. I think we did say, as a board, we would like the administration to go back and add the cost of the design to the budget for this, for the coming year.
No, but like think like it is on the last lifeline, it is under the tarp line, right? If you want to put like, we put one more tarp line, if it leaks or something happened again. And it's like facilities risk, and I'm not comfortable sending my kid to the Applegarth at this point of time.
If Mr. Tague, if you would you be able to address the process for the roof and the timing, because...
Not the process, what is the current state and how we are going to mitigate that in this budget, or like in 23-24 budget?
To his point, we do maintain a maintenance repair budget. There are monies for maintenance repairs, so if something comes up and we need to do an interim repair like we did this current year, we would take that approach. So yes, we can continue to address those issues while the project is being designed, if the board proceeds to go ahead with the design.
Mr. Tague, if you could just confirm, we had this conversation also today, the current safety of the roof based upon the attention that you've been giving it, the issue that we had previous with the rain and so forth, as far as the safety of the children being in the building regarding what we're doing to make sure that we're on top of it.
Yeah, there are no safety concerns related to the roof, none whatsoever.
Thank you.
But the question is it on the tarp line? And any part of the roof is like living on the tarp line, not on the actual roof? Is there a pool liner that is covered the roof?
On one section, it's not a pool liner, but there is a roof membrane on one section, 1979 section.
Okay, so that's not an actual roof, it's like roof liner.
It is, it's on top of it.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Malam, I do share your concern. I'm going to have a child that's going to be in Applegarth School next year, so I do share your concern as a parent of the condition of the school. Very disappointing that we did not pass the referendum, and I do know that there have been issues this year with the roof where it has leaked when it's rained. The administration, Mr. Tague, has taken care of that. They have repaired it. Like Mr. Tague said, they do have money to make those repairs when needed. So it will not be abandoned and not carefully watched and inspected to make the necessary repairs. But I think the next step in this process is adding the design cost, because that has to come first, and that goes into this budget, and then the following year, if we have to budget then to do the roof, and that's where, Ms. Bierman was saying that we may have to go above the 2% cap to pay for that and bring that back out to the voters.
That means
Unfortunately, we only have one pot of money that we can go to, and short of making drastic cuts to our programs and services, which this board had asked at the beginning of the process to keep all of our programs and services and staff in place. I think the administration has done an excellent job at trying to put together something for us tonight, a balanced budget with the unfortunate situation that we're in. So
the understanding is like the roof is going to be like replaced in 24-25 budget, and we are having a design budget for 23-24, a design provision.
I think that sounds like the plan that the recommendation would have to come from the administration to the board, and that would have to be something that would be approved. We can't say that this evening, but that will be something, I'm sure, that will be on upcoming BG&T meetings and discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Krishna Dekale, Monroe Township. I'm looking at Schedule B. Just wanted to understand that the health benefits that are written here are the health benefits package that is the administration's cost towards the health benefits for the staff working at our schools. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The second question I had was regarding the technology. One of the things that Mr. Pradeep also brought up ahead of me was that there would be Apple would support iPads for almost 7 years. Has the district or the BOE considered that we give an iPad at the beginning of the middle school and then have the child carry it for 7 years?
All right.
Sure. Dr. Lehman?
So Mr. Feldman, the director of our technology department, is already working on looking at our options, because we will be looking at another potential refresh or extension of what we already have in the coming year and a half. So that is something that we're certainly looking for, maintaining our 9 to 12 one-to-one initiative. Again, with our financial constraints, adding the middle school, adding a 7 to 12, 6 to 12 piece is not something that's on the table right now. It's something we certainly have as a goal technology-wise, but the reality is we are where we are, and the priority will be to take our current 9-12 program with our refresh and our Apple products and things, and now with the newer technology, they have a 4-year insurance program instead of the 3-year plan now. They're costing it out for multiple options. So when it comes to address this during next year in terms of how to prepare and budget and get ourselves squared away for what the future looks like with the one-to-one. They're already doing the work now to do that. So we don't have answers. We are looking at multiple scenarios in terms of the way they're distributed, how often we refresh them, how long we keep them, what type of insurance we have, all those kind of options. And it's a data gathering piece right now, and we will have that, you know, as a significant topic of discussion moving forward.
Sure. Thank you. Those were
Yep.
the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Arminio.
Good evening, Michelle Arminio, Monroe Township. 3 questions. At one point in the last few years, the ROD grants had been eliminated from the state. So are they now available, and how much do we know how much they are in the state and what our projections are for getting them?
They are available again, and we have applied for, I don't know how much.
We have applied for the ROD grants, is what you're saying? For various, hi.
Yes, so ROD grants are available if you proceed with a capital project. The only capital project that you saw on the budget that is applicable for this upcoming year is the phone system, and we do have an application in for that. If we go with the roofs, as mentioned, they would be a viable option too.
Good, let's get that out before they get rid of it, because that has happened in the state.
Yeah.
The state gives it, and then they take it back. Okay, so the total budget then that has been presented tonight is the $149,839,739. Is that the correct number?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's the entire budget. All right. And on tonight's agenda, which I also believe is a budgetary issue for next year, so within keeping of the hearing, there are 37 new positions. Is that for next year's budget that we're doing, or is that able to be satisfied in the current budget that we have? 37 new positions.
The budget for next year only includes, I think, 8 new positions. So anything I think that's on there is probably just to replace.
Yeah, no, I don't remember that last year there were 37. I mean, I counted 37.
We don't have 37 next
No positions on here?
In the agenda.
New positions?
New hires?
Yes, it says new position on the agenda.
Well, I thought we were talking about I'm a little confused. Is she looking at the budget, she's looking at the regular agenda?
She's looking at the
I'm looking, and I'm
Can you give me the line item?
No, not the line item. I'm saying, are the...
Oh, it's the career grants. Those positions are grant funded.
They're grant funded?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. That's the career grant that's currently occurring at the middle school, and it is the second year of the actual grant.
Okay. And it is also and if you want to call it historic or that I'm a dinosaur, that's okay. But it is my understanding if we go back to a public vote for the budget, 1, we'd have to go back to voting for everything in April. 2, if the budget does go down, it goes to the town council. And in my historic experience, if the unfortunately, the town council would have our budget in their hands. And for a $149 million budget, and in the past it was like a $100 million budget, $108 million budget, they would take $500,000 off and call it a day. Now, my only problem with that is that it sort of usurps the actual vote if people vote no, which I'm, by the way, disappointed that the referendum didn't go through. I'm not in favor of going over cap. I think the issue about not having enough money in our budgets has less to do with the Board of Education than it does with our construction environment. And again, I'm going to say poor planning. I'm going to say the new master plan. And that all has to do with the construction that's going on in this town. So I would ask that all of those people who voted no on the budget go across the street and talk to the municipality, because while the Board of Education may have, 60% of the tax, the local tax levy, the township council has 100% of the construction, and they have all of the power to do that. So I would also ask that perhaps we can ask our attorney, because I'm sure Mr. Gagliardo is well-versed on the current issues and how that works, and we don't have to wait until next month to find the details. I'm sure he can talk just generally and let us know if that is correct about going for a overcap.
Well,
We
right
have
now.
our professional here who
Yes,
gets
but
quite a
right-
bit of money
Right
an
now,
hour.
this is a public hearing on this budget. We're not going over cap this year. That is something, a
But you
discussion.
brought it up, Madam Chair, in the hearing. This is the hearing part. You brought it up, you mentioned it, so I am just
We
feeding back.
mentioned it as something that we're going to bring back to finance, that came out of finance.
But
It
you
is not
mentioned it during the hearing. This is the hearing for this budget. I would ask
For this
that you
budget,
continue.
right. We're not going over cap. Mr. Gagliardi, would you like to give a comment?
Thank you.
It's pretty straightforward, rather than talk about what I might say in a couple of months, although the suspense, I'm sure, is awesome.
It's killing me.
In a nutshell, your articulation of what happens if there is a public vote on the budget is correct. That is to say, it would take place in April, and a defeated budget goes to the council. And the council has almost unfettered discretion as to what to do with this school budget, as awkward as that seems, given the ways the bodies otherwise operate separately. They don't have to cut anything.
That's correct.
They could increase the budget, by the way. I've not seen it happen, but they could. And should they choose to cut, they can cut as little or as much as they want, unless it threatens your ability to provide a thorough and efficient education. So it's an extraordinary exercise. If an impasse is reached, the county superintendent is empowered to mediate the impasse. If the board is unhappy with the decision, it can file an appeal with the Department of Education, which is rarely granted.
Right. And thank you. I wasn't as interested in what the council is going to do as to the procedure as Ms. Dupayne asked. So thank you for the information.
Thank you, Ms. Arminian.
Brian Fabiano, United States of America. First, I'd like to recognize there's not many
Your
remaining, but the
Your
teacher.
municipality?
United States of America.
No,
Recognize
Mr.
the
Fabiano,
empty.
our policy
Monroe, New
Thank
Jersey,
you.
United States of America. I just want to say thank you to our hardworking teachers that showed up tonight, and that we recognize that they're here. For the budget, what I'm having a hard time understanding is, it sounds like you guys have put all your eggs in one basket, hoping that this referendum was going to pass, and I think it's kind of peculiar that we hear tonight that we can get grants for roofs, there are other options, but where have you guys been for the last year, 2 years, 3 years? This roof didn't start leaking overnight, so we waited knowing that we had options and grants that we could go for, but we said, oh, we'll just wait on a referendum. I mean, that's poor planning. And now you're going to go back out to the taxpayers if this overcap option is the way you go, because you guys were short-sighted in your vision. You guys waited and put all your eggs in one basket for the referendum. I think it's poor. And again, it falls back on the taxpayer to come back out and look at something that you guys waited, honestly, to the last minute. It doesn't make any sense. When was the last time you guys did a reserve study?
I'm sorry, a reserve study?
You know what a reserve study is?
No.
Can you maybe ask Mr. Tague? So a reserve study is typically what bodies of government do to, and particularly school districts. They look at a period, usually 10 years, to see what the district is going to need in terms of, I mean, I guess the attorney could probably answer this, but typically a reserve study is you look and see what you're going to need in your reserves to maintain your buildings, to understand things that are going to come up, like a roof that's maybe aging out in 5 years that's going to need to be repaired, a boiler. When is the last time the district has done a study like that?
Oh, that is it? If I may, Mr. Gagliardi just said a long-range facilities plan, which is required every 5 years.
They call it a reserve site, right? When was the last time it was done?
Just now, just recently. When was it filed?
It was approved in November 2022.
Thank you. November 2022.
When was the last one before that? Do you happen to know? Just generally?
5 years before.
So it has been done every 5 years. So in the last long-range plan, reserve study, was it identified that this roof would need to be done, and did we go out and look at grants and explore those options at that time?
Mr. Tate, did you want to say something?
Did you want to respond?
So the long-range facilities plan is required to be updated every 5 years. Every time you do a project, a capital project, you have to do a minor amendment, which we do along the way. It does identify all the components of every building, and that is a guide for districts to use for plans.
So during all that planning, we never decided to go out and look at these grants to address the issues at Applegate.
The ROD grants that we referred to earlier just became available this month.
Can you use the microphone, Mr. Tate, please? Thank you.
The ROD grants that were just mentioned, the funding just became available this past month.
Okay. And then the final question I would have, or comment I would make, if your operating budget is as tight as it is and you're having to look at going out to the public above cap, I really hope that you would start to look and see what cuts can be made. Time and time again for the last number of months, you guys have been adding high-paying administrators, giving out raises in the board office. I mean, for a district that says that the budget is tight and the operating budget may be, you know, our reserves could run out in 4 months, it sure doesn't look that way in some of the decisions that you guys make. And again, I'll address it at the next public session when we can talk about agenda items. But you guys are giving out raises in these these high-flying positions when it sounds like we should be making cuts to be able to address these budget shortfalls. That's all. 56 seconds.
Mrs. Chanley, if you could explain the cost savings that this board has done through some of those positions.
So with all the changes of the positions, every time it was presented to the Personnel Committee, it was also presented with a fiscal savings financially with the restructuring of the positions. No additional positions have cost any extra money. If anything, we were able to save money in moving things around. Regarding some monies that were spent, monies were spent appropriately and approved for the Finance Department that would move forward. With regard to additional work and additional responsibilities. That's all I'll say because I just spoke the facts.
Thank you. And if I could just make a comment, the majority of us are only in our 3rd year term here on the board, some in our 2nd and some are 1st year board members. We are a very new board, very new administration, and a new business administrator. This issue that we have in our district was dropped in our laps. For many years, as Ms. Allen has explained to us, the fund balance has been used to balance the budget and has been drawn down for many, many years, leaving us in the situation that we're in now. That is not a consequence of anything that this board has done. Yes, Applegarth was for many years. I know I've been advocating for probably at least 10, 11 years in the public to address the issues at Applegarth. Previous boards and previous administrations did not do that. So this is what we're left with. And unfortunately, we have a very small fund balance. We don't have any bank cap. We're not getting the kind of state aid that we have, and we are trying to keep our programs and our services that we currently offer in place. We're not expanding. We're keeping status quo of what we have. So I think that this budget that Ms. Allen and the administration has put together is a very responsible budget, and it is addressing what we have going on. And unfortunately, there are going to be hard decisions that have to be made if we can't afford the maintenance items that did not get passed by the taxpayers.
Doug Poy, Monroe Township. My question is, when did all the board members get the 2 schedules, Schedule A and Schedule B? So
They came to us on Tuesday morning.
I'm sorry?
Tuesday morning this week.
Tuesday morning of this week?
Yes.
Well, that certainly didn't give our board members much of an opportunity to look this over and maybe address some of their questions to the administration prior to tonight's meeting.
This is typical of the cadence of how these things...
I'm sorry?
This has been typical over the course of years.
No, I have not noticed it being typical, and I attend almost every board meeting since 2013. Either attend it or I watch the video. And I must say that tonight's presentation of what I've seen so far and the discussion that I've seen so far falls far below prior preliminary budget presentations. I take into account the fact that the majority of this board is inexperienced. And so I think we have to be patient with that. But I cannot see why the board members only got this information on Tuesday. I was looking for this information over the weekend. I was also looking for it on Monday. On Tuesday, I looked for it again this morning because I said, well, if they're doing a budget presentation, I'd like to see in advance what they're proposing. Because as a private citizen, I might have some questions to raise. It wasn't available until tonight, and then you didn't have sufficient copies for every member of the public. I think this is regrettable. I hope that you will avoid it in the future. As far as your, I'll save that for a later comment. Thank you.
I know that I want to address Ms. Allen and her staff have been working 12-hour days tirelessly through the weekend. There have been issues that have come up. As I said, with the fund balance, she did not want, the administration did not want to drain that down. She's been doing a lot of work with her office to ensure that we could balance this budget, and it did take a little bit longer because of the situation that we are facing with our finances. So, Ms. Allen, I do want to thank you for the work and the time that you and your staff have put into putting this together. And I do recognize that we did get it later than was said, but it has been explained appropriately why there was a delay. So thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Sarah Shama, Monroe Township. So my question is, what happens when, this is, I think, the third time we voted on this. So how many times do we keep going through all of this before?
This is the budget hearing, not the referendum.
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry.
my point, okay, so let me kind of backtrack. From the budget side of things, right, I don't want to see any programs get cut. I don't want to see teachers get cut. That's the most important thing why we're here, right?
Absolutely.
Is for our children to get the best education possible, because I would love to see all of our children go on to amazing colleges and, whatever their career paths are, and that they get the proper foundation from these years. And my fear is that if we're constantly arguing over these budgets and things and where money is going to, but the priority needs to be the actual education of our students. And that's where I'm coming from, is my point, or my question really lies in, you're allocating budgets and numbers, but how do we protect that? How do we protect the programs and the teachers so that you don't turn around and say, well, we lost the roof, now we got to cut teachers because we got to fix the roof. So that's kind of where I'm trying to understand how this all plays out. And maybe I'm naive to all of this, and I'm very new to this, but like I said, my number one priority is that these students get a proper education. So if you can answer that for me, that would be great.
Sure, and I think that's all of our goal here too, to ensure that we give the very best to education to the students as possible. And when we did our budget philosophy back in the fall, that was one of the things that this board asked of the administration, was not to cut any current staff or programs or services that we have. And I believe in this budget we are not doing that.
That's correct.
And we have not made any cuts. There have been, I've sat where you are, and I've seen preliminary budgets come and busing get cut, pay to participate come in, which caused, concerns of parents. We've seen other cuts, and I know a lot of us on the board had taken part in those public hearings and asked the board to reconsider, and then they did come back, at the final budget hearing and did reconsider and did not keep those cuts in place. Like I said, this board, though, during the budget philosophy, asked the administration not to do that. So this budget for next year does not have any cuts to anything that we're currently offering to our students. Because I agree with you, that is the most important thing, is offering the best that we can for our students.
And I guess I just wanted to understand, in the sense of, because you said it's preliminary conversations and budgets, so it passes or it doesn't pass? How does that work exactly? Because you're saying right now we're not cutting anything and everything is staying as status quo, but is there that potential threat for next year, or no?
I don't see that. So the administration takes back the budget now. We had asked them to add the cost for the design for the roof, so they have to go back and work that in. But it would be, I would believe, our expectation of the board that that would not cause the administration to then cut anything that currently is in this budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else from the public? All right, we will close the public hearing on the preliminary budget. Ms. Allen, I think you have a resolution to read.
Be it resolved by the Monroe Township Board of Education that the 2023-24 tentative general fund budget be adopted in the amount of $137,479,375 and a tentative general fund local tax levy in the amount of $114,676.
I like thousand better.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Okay, $114,676,549, and a tentative special revenue fund budget in the amount of $1,360,401, and a tentative debt service budget in the amount of $10,999,963, and a tentative debt service local tax levy in the amount of $10,725,988. Whereby the tentative 2023-24 budget totals $149,839,739, and be it resolved further by the Monroe Township Board of Education to transfer $835,160 from unassigned fund balance to reserved excess surplus designated for future years' expenditures, thus reducing the 4% of 21-22 general fund expenditure to its traditional 2% requirement, and an additional $1,263,055 from unassigned fund balance to reserved excess surplus designated for future years' expenditures. Whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has been notified of state aid amounts, and whereas such state aid amounts are, for 2023-24, the categorical special education aid is $7,253,233, and for 2023-24, the categorical security aid is $636,791, and for 2023-24, the categorical transportation aid is $3,280,473, and for 2023-24, the debt service aid is $273,975. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has estimated a state aid amount pursuant to application, and for 23-24, the estimated extraordinary aid amount is $397,484. And whereas policy number 6471 and NJAC 6A:23A-7.3 provides that the Board of Education shall establish in the annual school budget a maximum expenditure amount that may be allotted for travel and expense reimbursement for 2023-24 school year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education hereby establishes the school district travel maximum for the 2023-24 school year at the tentative sum of $165,500, and be it further resolved that the school business administrator shall track and record these costs to ensure that the maximum amount is not exceeded. And be it further resolved that members of the Monroe Township Board of Education authorize and approve a withdrawal from the fund balance for unemployment claims in the amount of $100,000, and be it further resolved that the board transfer $300,000 of anticipated retained earnings from the proprietary Falcon Care Fund as a revenue source in the 2023-24 general fund budget. And whereas due to the consistent student enrollment growth, facility needs, and other priorities set forth in the board's budget philosophy resolution, the board is budgeting to maximum spending authority. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the superintendent of schools and the business administrator, board secretary, file the required documents with the executive county superintendent.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions on the resolution? Ms. Bohr?
Clarification, please. So, and this is from any experience, the number 835,000 and 1,263,000, is that the money that's been moved out of our reserve, or is
yes
to support the
to support the budget.
2023-24
Yes,
budget?
correct.
There are two different funds?
Mm-hmm. Two different amounts, yes. Two different, one is really from the taking the, in the prior year, we had a 4% excess surplus, and now it's down to 2%, so that's really the difference to bring it from 4 to 2%. And the other is really just an additional amount to balance the
that we're
budget.
bringing out of our reserve fund.
Yes.
So one is from the previous year and one is from our.
Yeah, basically.
The 1.2 million is from our reserve fund.
Yes,
The
that we are.
surplus fund.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? All right, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Tufano?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Gerby?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the unanimous passing of the preliminary budget. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I just want to thank again the administration and all of the staff and Laura, you and your business office and everybody that had a hand in putting this together. I know it's been a very long endeavor since the fall of the defense round and meeting with the principals and the staff and really a true collaboration across the district, so thank you. Our next item on the agenda are our committee reports. We had 3 committees this month. So we have 3 committees to report. Ms. Bierman.
Finance Committee met on Wednesday, March 8th, 6:30 p.m. First item was the monthly review of the attorney fees. The January 2023 attorney fees were $21,210. The committee reviewed and discussed the broad categories, including proportion at 13 to 14% of the overall, and labor negotiations at 32% of the overall expenditure. The committee continues to recommend the board decision to work with an outside law firm. Monthly review of the bill list. The committee reviewed and submitted the bill list and recommends the full board to approve both the bill list and addendum. The initial bill list was $7,445,266.03. The addendum to the bill list, $1,549,873.49. The committee reviewed specific items such as the BrainPop software renewal, including provided usage data, and the invoice from AccuScan for digital archiving and shredding of paper files. Audit update. The committee was advised the final version of the annual comprehensive financial report would be made available to board members in their Friday agenda packet and recommends the board approve the report so it can be submitted to the state as required. This item is on the agenda accordingly for a resolution to be accepted. And we had a budget update. The committee had a prolonged discussion concerning the budget and budget process. Ms. Allen provided an update, sharing the district was still working on balancing the budget and closing the gap, and hoped to have the preliminary budget distributed by Monday to board members in anticipation of the presentation of the preliminary budget and public hearing scheduled for March 15th board meeting. Of note, our categorical state aid did increase 15.69% to $11,567,981. Ms. Allen explained state aid is dispersed twice a month during the school year months. Even with the increase in state aid and going to the 2% tax levy cap and continuing to work toward creating and increasing other revenue streams for the district, we find ourselves back to where we were prior to the COVID pause. In order to balance the budget, we deplete from the surplus. We have no anticipated means to replace the surplus. We are dwindling on having this avenue to close gaps in future budgets. Therefore, we are going to need to start having discussions about our future plans. One consideration is bringing the budget back to public vote, which would allow us to request monies beyond the 2% cap. The committee has requested the administration gather information on what pros, cons are carried with this method and what the process would be to shift to a public vote on the annual budget. In general, our district must start being realistic about the financial impact of limited revenue compared to higher expenditures and shift decisions to a spending mindset that complements the available monies. Concerning the referendum, the committee received an update from Mrs. Chanley concerning the referendum and how the website is being continually updated to reflect any new questions or information brought forth. We also had an annual contract renewal for consideration. We reviewed the invoice for the renewal of the Zoom software for the district at $17,500 for the period of February 23 to February 24. District administration is evaluating alternatives to Zoom for the next renewal time slot. The committee recommends approval of this contract renewal as it appears on the agenda for the 3:15 meeting. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Bierman? No? Okay. Our next committee report, Mr. Tofano.
Our committee met on March 8th. First thing on the agenda was the Eagle Scout presentation for Mill Lake School. Eagle Scout candidate and current Monroe Township High School student Anya Rana presented a proposed project to construct a playground library at Mill Lake School. The committee members and administration were highly complimentary of the proposal and Ms. Rana's efforts and offered full support for the project. The second item on the agenda was the Acevedo residence sewer water easement. Administration shared engineering plans provided by resident Acevedo, which proposed tie-in of municipal water and sewer to their home via an easement between the school properties. The committee requested that the administration obtain an estimate for board legal services for consideration before any further action was taken. Number 3 was an update on the Troy and Banks utilities rebate. The committee reviewed a spreadsheet analysis of district's cellular program and concurred with the recommendation to consolidate the plans, which will result in a projected annual savings of $3,839.20. The last item on our agenda was the status update, compost plan integration. Administration provided an overview of their findings after soliciting input from over 46 districts, a draft concept plan that demonstrated a potential cost of plus or minus $37,000 annually to compost kitchen waste. Compost the kitchen waste only was reviewed. The committee requested that administration approach local farms to see if they would be willing to donate this service. Furthermore, the committee requested that composting per the draft concept plan be bid as potential ad alternate in the forthcoming district trash and recycling bid. That's it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Tofano? All right. Ms. Boer, you want to give the personnel update?
I do. The Personnel Committee met on Wednesday, March 8th. The board members in attendance were Ms. Bierman, Ms. Scott, Mr. Tofano, Mrs. Kirby, and myself. Administrators in attendance were Mrs. Chanley and Dr. Lehman. We reviewed the current openings in the district. At the time of the meeting last week, we had 45 vacancies, 4 due to retirement, 19 due to resignations, 11 due to leave, 10 due to transfers within the district, and 1 is a new position. 10 of these positions were covered by 17% increment in contractual payment of currently employed staff members, and 12 were filled through hires and transfers. 51 applications were received for these 12 filled positions. Mrs. Chanley brought forth 2 recommendations for job descriptions, which are on agenda tonight for approval. The first is to modify the position job description for Supervisor of Instruction, Applied Arts and Career to now be Supervisor of Instruction, Fine and Performing Arts, Health and Physical Education. We recently hired a Director of Innovative and Equity Programs, Community Relations Partnerships, and Careers and Technology. Some of the job roles of the supervisor position being modified are now covered under the job responsibilities of this new director position, like careers, industrial arts, graphic design, etc. So the modified job description will only handle the fine and performing arts responsibility of the old job description. Added to that recommendation is to move PE and health into the prerogative of this supervisory role. Mrs. Chanley and Dr. Lehman explained that both the previous athletic supervisor, Mr. Byers, and the current supervisor, Mr. Dolling, have raised concerns to the district administration in the past about responsibilities of PE and health requiring an assistant to fulfill, as there are time-intensive evaluations that have to be done in order to meet the state guidelines for PE, physical education and health, which have been extremely difficult to manage by the athletic supervisors. Moving health and PE under the responsibility of supervisors of instructions, fine and performing arts, health and physical education will address this long-standing concerns of our athletic supervisors. There was some discussion on concerns about the impact of combining the fine and performing arts supervision with PE and health, which some of us board members felt were both very varied fields. Administration explained that it is not uncommon in supervisor role descriptions to add multiple unrelated fields, as is the case in some current supervisory roles in this district, and as was explained, that this particular role exists in several districts around us as well. The supervisor of fine and performing arts also manages PE and health. When a candidate is hired, administration would look to relevant experience and ability in the candidate to manage the supervision of all fields involved. As a result of this movement of PE and health supervisory responsibility, the administration had an opportunity to reevaluate the current athletic supervisor's job description as well. I was quite surprised to learn that while we have always referred to them as AD, Monroe schools currently do not have a position of athletic director and only one of athletic supervisor. Mrs. Chanley has recommended that since PE and health would now be handled by another supervisor, the position of supervisor of athletics and co-curricular programs should be converted to a director of athletics and co-curricular programs, as is fitting to a school district of our size with the exceptional athletic programs, excellent marching band and color guards, and the variety of competing and non-competing clubs and co-curricular activities that we have, which continues to grow with every passing year thanks to the talented pool of students we take pride in. So both of these recommendations were unanimously approved by the Personnel Committee and are on agenda tonight for a full board vote. And that concludes my personnel report. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Boer? Ms. Ratner?
Just two quick questions, and thank you as always for the meeting that you do with us. It is greatly appreciated. So the first was, if you can just read what the new supervisor position, I guess, originally was. I saw that the font was small. I don't know if maybe that was something, it was.
The original position was supervisor of instruction, applied arts, and careers.
Okay, so there was no performing arts on there.
Oh, so I might have copied it wrong from.
That's fine. I was confused, so we're good.
Thank you for correcting that.
That wasn't my intent, I assure you. I was wondering. Anyway, the second was, I know that there was a mention of a cost analysis, I guess that's brought to personnel, and I'm just wondering if maybe in the meetings that might be something that can be.
Can I defer to Ms. Chanley on the cost analysis? Thank you.
So in this particular two positions, we didn't bring a cost analysis because we don't know the employees in which it would affect. The comment that was made by the public that I was referring to was the previous positions that are currently now positions in our district was brought the cost savings at the time, and it was actually even described in personnel as well in finance. So I was referencing the comment that was made to answer the person in the public.
Okay, just to piggyback, and Ms. Boer, is doing these meetings, which I really appreciate because it's the one meeting that she's aware we are unable to watch as board members. So I guess just if there is, not specifically to this, but if there is that conversation in the personnel committee in general, if that can be brought to the board members, that would be great.
You can trust me to do that.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I just want to thank Ms. Boer also for making the time to include us in her committee. I know last night I was a little bit late. I was babysitting down in Howell and was flying in the door trying to get in. But I want to thank her for always keeping in mind that there are board members, other board members that should be included, and I think she does a great job of doing that.
Anybody else? Okay. That concludes our committee reports. Our next item on the agenda is our public forum for agenda items only. Anybody wishing to address the board on our agenda items, you can come up to the podium. You have 4 minutes. Please state your name and municipality. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Gordon Deal, Jamesburg. Assistant boys soccer coach at Monroe High School. I'm not a teacher. I'm here tonight to discuss the recommendation to change the present job description of supervisor of athletics to director. The public perception, as you probably know, is that it appears to be an effort to push Sean Dowling out the door. He's the most forward-thinking, dedicated, enthusiastic supervisor of athletics that Monroe has had. And I go back to the Hugh Walsh days as an athlete in this area and as a coach. It's my understanding that if the title changes, the director position will then require certification that our current supervisor does not have. Some say it's a backhanded way of firing him. I know you're going to tell us that Monroe is growing. We need to upgrade the position. The resolution, at least as I read it, doesn't say how this change will upgrade things. Similar schools in size to ours, like East Brunswick, North Brunswick, Freehold, Marlborough, all list supervisor of athletics on their websites. They seem to be fine. Facebook comments, whether you trust them or not, suggest the job description change is payback for a football coaching decision. Probably not provable. Facebook comments suggest Mr. Dowling's Super Saturday effort to showcase the high school to the community caused a turf war involving the Booster Club that this is payback. Again, probably not provable. If this job description change forces him from his position, you should know that would be a loss for our student athletes at Monroe Township High School. Sean Dowling makes efforts that others do not. The first time I met him, he was at a boys' lacrosse game, and while supervising on the sideline, here he is repairing a lacrosse stick with a screwdriver. Later that year in the fall, my freshman boys soccer team was wrapping up the season when I was told that there would be no freshman GMC tournament. Mr. Dowling put a round robin together in 6 days. The coaches were wildly appreciative, knowing their own ADs or supervisors would not have made that effort. Sean Dowling is a doer. He oversaw the change of the dance team from a club to a varsity sport. He asked that they perform on the sidelines of football games for the first time. He even convinced the stadium announcer for the New York Giants to be the voice of Monroe football. Sean Dowling is a doer. He also upgraded our signing day. Instead of just highlighting Division I student athletes, Mr. Dowling hosts a signing day for every level of student athlete. Again, Sean Dowling is a doer. He also agreed to host the semifinals and finals of the Greater Middlesex Conference basketball tournaments. Most ADs want nothing to do with that. He uses it as an opportunity to showcase Monroe High School because Sean Dowling is a doer. He's in the New Jersey Lacrosse Hall of Fame. He was the 2019 Athletic Director of the Year in New Jersey. Doesn't even have the certification. He coaches players. He knows how to coach the coaches. He shares decades of real-world experience. A change in job description may require a new level of certification, but it does not guarantee you're improving the position. You know that, but perhaps you're going to change the rules anyway. So I'll close with this. If there are petty politics at work or just an oversight here, I ask the board to consider maybe change the job description language. If not, maybe grandfather in Mr. Dowling, save the new requirements for the next hire. He enjoys enormous support among parents and students. In the real world, watching my time, smart managers do what they can to keep their best people on behalf of the customer. In academia, I like to think smart managers keep their best people, like Sean Dowling, to do what's best for the customer, like children and parents. Anyone who knows anything about sports knows he does everything an AD does and more because he's a doer. So let's not Pete Pirro, another devoted Monroe employee. I would like to think you'd be proud of such an excellent hire in Mr. Dowling. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming and thank you for your comments. It's always wonderful to hear the things that our staff is doing and the appreciation that those in the community and in our own staffing employees have for our own staff. So thank you for your comments. As far as personnel issues, we are not at liberty to discuss those. I can tell you any type of Facebook posts you are reading are categorically false, and I will defer to Mrs. Chanley if you would like to explain again the rationale for the position upgrade of the job description.
Whenever we create new positions in the area of director, we look to have a principal certificate because it allows us opportunities in the future to be able to move people around if necessary. There are a lot of districts that currently in the state of New Jersey, a lot of districts that utilize directors as well as supervisors that require principal certificates because if the need was to arise, they can become building level administrators. A supervisor does not have the ability to be a principal, whereas a director or a supervisor that holds a principal certificate would be able to step in at any time in the role of a principal. It is, I'm not even going to comment regarding Facebook because of the lies that are out there, and I think it's very sad, but it is the community that we live in, and unfortunately there is a lot of sadness. So the recommendation is put forth. The vote always, as I say, your vote, your voice is, your vote is your voice. So by all means, I respect the decisions made, but I stand by my recommendation, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Hello.
Sarah Shama, Monroe Township. So this is actually very new for me. Sorry, can you not hear me? Okay. So I only heard of all of this a little while ago, and I'm really flabbergasted by the idea of joining the two positions into one. And I'm expressing this strictly from a professional opinion. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I work with obesity and weight loss and children and their eating habits and all those kind of things. And I think lumping the two together and having one person to work in that capacity won't really work. You have fundamental differences with the fine arts and physical education and health. And you need specialists, right? So like I can't do the job of a nurse or a doctor, and neither can they do my job. And so I don't think that you can put one director into a position like that where you're lumping together fundamentally different, practices and activities. You won't find somebody who is going to have the skill set for both. And I don't think that's a right decision. And I don't know if it's a cost savings thing, but I'm just thinking about the big picture. You do need someone who is all in athletics, who is all into, wanting to make sure that our athletic programs thrive and that we have these great athletes. And then you have somebody who's doing the fine arts and who's focused on that and making sure that students have what they need in that realm. So I hope that you would reconsider that and keeping them as two separate positions.
Would you like to address that?
I want to apologize, but you're misspeaking. So what you're saying is athletics, you use the word athletics, we're moving physical education and health.
Yeah.
No, that is not
Okay.
athletics.
Okay, so the
Athletics will stay completely separate. I'm removing physical education and health because of the constraints it puts on the current athletic supervisor, and it's been an ongoing problem for many years. Physical education and health is an area that's guided by state curriculum, and that will be added to performing arts. That is very common practice. In our own neighbor of Jamesburg, they have one supervisor for every content area. In our own current district, we have a supervisor of science who does an exceptional job, Ms. Drust. She only has a science background. She is the supervisor of history. So this is done on a very common basis. The area of athletics, competitive athletics, is being removed and separated.
So that's going to be its own position?
Correct.
And then you're putting phys ed and the fine arts together with one
Correct.
supervisor. So I guess I'm confused then, or I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, about the removal of the director. Is that because of that, or is that something else?
It's not I can't speak on people.
Okay.
It's just positions. It's just two different positions. We're utilizing the fact that the current supervisor of fine arts has less to do because some of those responsibilities were then given to the director of innovative programs. So it opens up an amount of an area in which they're able to also take on as their purview, and by putting a K through 12 requirement of physical education and health in that area, it then lessens the work of the area in athletics. What was brought to me was putting in another position for more financial cost as an assistant and leaving it as is. Rather than that, we're making it a director position. And they don't have to be concerned with physical education and health, which is very heavy in the area of curriculum and very heavy in the area of observations and evaluations of staff.
Okay, so just so that I clarify and just fully understand this. So the athletic director position remains, and then it's a secondary position that is going to cover all of that area? No, I'm still missing the point.
No, it's going from a supervisor position to a...
The area of athletics is you're removing health and PE.
Yeah.
It's becoming a director position of athletics only.
Okay,
PE
so we're not
and health is
losing an
being
athletic
added to the
director.
supervisor.
Okay, so we're not losing an athletic director.
You're gaining an athletic director. We currently
Right.
have an athletic supervisor.
Got it. Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Brian Fabiano, Monroe, New Jersey. So the first question is, if it's a director position and it's going to require a principal certificate, right? That's what you said?
Yes.
If Mr. Dowling doesn't have that certificate, which he doesn't, he's out of a job. I mean, it's yes or no.
I respect what you're saying, but I can't respond to an
Okay, so
individual.
let's
I
say,
can
okay,
respond
let's
to a
take,
position.
okay, so let's not say Dowling. Let's say Frankenstein. Frankenstein applies for the job and he doesn't have a principal certificate. He's not going to get hired, correct?
We cannot have any personnel discussions.
Okay, so the description for the job requires a principal certificate, correct? So if there's a principal requirement, it's safe to assume you're going to be looking for people with a principal certificate. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's okay. Thank you. Mrs. Bora stated that other districts around us have the same particular position of mixing fine arts and phys ed health. Can you tell us what districts those are that you stated? Yeah, I mean, you use it as a case study. I just want to know who they are, because if it's, you just tried to compare Monroe, hold on, you just tried to compare Monroe to Jamesburg, which is this big, and we're this big. So if you're trying to use that as an example, it's a fail. So can you give us a like-sized district that is doing what you're proposing to do?
Scotch Plains. The head of CJMEA.
Okay,
For that-
we'll
excuse
go
me, sir.
on to my next, I don't need an answer, I don't need any more. I'll read a comment from a parent. Her name is Jennifer in the district. She couldn't be here tonight, but what she said about the athletic director is this. One thing I want to mention, if I could be there, is he started a D3 signing day. Since they did not get their own signing day, like D1 athletes, he set aside a whole ceremony type of thing for the athletes that were going to a D3 school. He made them feel just as important as D1 athletes. It was one of the most memorable events at the high school. Look through the pictures from years ago, and you'll probably see some from that day as well. It's very clear. You can see you discount Facebook, but these are humans. These are parents that speak up, that are giving their voices about Mr. Dowling. We know what's going on here, and I can't top the guy that just stood here before and said everything that we're thinking. This is another Pete Pirro situation. It's clear as day, clear as day. And I'm going to tell you, because I have the personal experience. I know members of this board, particularly the board president, has had it out from Dowling for a long, long time. I'm going to tell you, it's my time to speak. It started with the Booster Club, and it raveled out of control from there. Just because you don't like Dowling and the fact that he won't be controlled and he won't do things that you want him to do when he doesn't think it's appropriate for his position or for what's best for the district is a real sham. And what I've been told by parents, this isn't a threat, it's a promise. If you open up this can of worms and you pass this tonight, there are going to be a lot of parents that step forward and start talking. We know what are in people's files, personnel files. We know what's been covered up. And if you want to go forward with it, that's your choice. But be prepared for the parents to show up and express their complete, utter dissatisfaction with this board. Because this is a complete play out of what we went through with this director of security position. And you guys should really be ashamed.
I'm not sure what you think you know of personnel records, but those are held tightly by our human resource department. So nobody. Excuse me, you're out of order. As far as the situation or whatever made-up thing you think happened with Mr. Pirro, this Board of Education approved a new job description, interviews were done, a recommendation was made from the superintendent with not only that job, but it was an increase in pay, and this board unanimously approved that position. And Mr. Pirro for that position. So I don't know what kind of sham job you're talking about. Those are the facts. Excuse me, you're out of order.
Pete Pirro, Monroe Township. So, yeah, if you're going to bring up my old job, well, let's talk facts. The fact is, the day of my interview, I was never even notified. Mr. Lehman called me at home. The fact is, when I was offered the job back, I asked what my raise was, and Ms. Chanley told me she didn't know. She'd have to go to personnel. And then she came back and said I would get a 2.5% raise. Anybody who was a director making over 100 grand got a 2 or 3% raise. I was making 70 grand, got a 2% raise. So if you want to talk the facts, we could talk facts all day long. Because I was told nothing. And I find it funny that I was told that Mr. Gagliardi said the only way to change my position was to eliminate my job and make me apply for the new job. And like I brought up last month, he didn't do that for Christine Christie, changed one word in her title, but that's fine. My question is, how many directors does Monroe Township have?
First of all, Christine Christie's job description was updated to add some duties to it. Her job title remained the same, and it remained the same job.
My job was the same thing, too.
No, it was not. Your job description changed completely. The name of your job changed from Director of Security to Director of Security and Residency.
How many directors does the district have?
Mrs. Chanley? I don't know off the top of my head. Several.
How many directors have a principal certificate?
Anybody who's a
Go ahead, you can answer that.
Certificate is the right term. I was corrected by Miss Christie. So when we create a director that is considered certificated, then we are requiring, it is a recommendation, which does not have to be approved, to have a principal certificate.
It's only a recommendation, correct?
That is correct. Anything I do is only a recommendation. I do not have the authority to approve anything.
But you don't need a certificate to be an athletic director, correct? Like Mr. Dowling now.
You need an athletic director is listed as
Okay.
a certificated, yes, that's correct.
But not a principal. You don't need that. But we're adding that to the new title.
It is the discretion of many districts that require principal certificates or supervisor certificates.
So Mr. Dowling needs till January of '24 to complete his 25 years in education. And
We are
this
not
board
discussing
is
anybody's personnel
That's fine,
information.
I'm speaking now. I'm not saying.
No,
I'm
but we
saying
are
what
not
you're doing.
discussing anybody's personnel information.
I could speak whatever I want. I'm at the podium. It's my right as an American. Correct, Mr. Vito? I do know criminal law. Remember, I was a police detective for 25 years.
But what's on the agenda is the job description, not any employee. So if you would like to make your comments to the agenda items only, it is not a discussion of a person.
You're not going to respond, I understand that, but my understanding is the gentleman is going to speak. You don't have to respond to it. Obviously, if I think there's a problem, I'll let you know, but I understand the question, and I am not suggesting you can't go forward.
My next question is, do we have a football coach? A head football coach? Mr. Lee resigned back in December.
All coaching positions, along with summer positions, along with yearly contracted positions, all must post. Actually, according to Ms. Allen, they should be posting after the April. The fact that he resigned doesn't mean anything because all of them technically are not employed until the following year. Every coach is a yearly stipend position. So when they resigned and then posted, Ms. Christie discussed it with me and said, it should not have posted, Mrs. Chanley. It is a yearly employed position. It's after the budget review that it should have posted. And that was the conversation that I had with Ms. Allen. And Ms. Allen confirmed that it actually should wait till after April. What we did was we went to personnel and said, would you be comfortable if we posted all fall positions in March to give us the extra month? The fact that someone resigns means nothing because technically he did not resign. Technically, and actually it's not even technical. He did not resign. I never was given a resignation. Why? Because his season was over. He completed his responsibilities and he may or may not be seeking reemployment as the head football coach.
Thank you.
Did not resign. All employees that are yearly contracted for stipends do not resign. They have the opportunity to reapply or not reapply.
How you doing? Jason Walters, Monroe Township. I'm really here for a little bit of contextual fact, just to bring up a couple things that I don't know if we're thinking about. I've coached pretty much volunteer every sport that's in this town. Boys, girls, everything, lacrosse, basketball, softball, baseball, cheer, football, name it, I've done them all. Without talking about personnel, but just the idea that we do have somebody to speak to at the high school, we have two North Stars. One is to raise young women and men to be high quality, competitive, and understand life. And then the second part is to prepare them for high school sports, specifically Monroe. And we have a bunch of great volunteer coaches in this town. And these changes, in a way, spit on the work that we've done in the last year and a half. We've had the best connection to our high school. It is because of the AD, but others, some of the other coaches as well. And we've gotten strides done in a year that took us 10 years before to even take a small step. And my worry is, any kind of change is, are we worried about the administrative benefit, or are we worried about the impact to the children that is starting at kindergarten when, as volunteer coaches start working with them? And I'm worried about that break. Like, I don't know if there's a comment or if it's just worth context here, but when you make decisions like that, think about all of us in the town that are educating and leading these kids way before they get into the system, way before they get to high school. It's all very important. My focus is on the impact of the children in life, not administrative stuff like certifications and things like that. Honestly, make no impact to our kids. maybe they help the structure of the school, but I just think it's important contextually to think about that. That's my ask. I don't know if there's a response here from the board, but it is vital to the perfection of our kids that they get this seamless path through life in sports and everything else that we're delivering as volunteers. I've got 3 kids. I barely make it to these things. I only come when it's impactful. And tonight I feel like this is an important conversation.
Thank you.
Is there any reaction to that? Any thoughts of administrative stuff versus impact of like real impact on children? Like what they're going to feel and them having a good athletic program and whatever comes with that or whatever change, that's important. I don't know if there's, is there any commentary to that?
No, thank you very much for your comments.
Great.
Avi Rizvi, Monroe Township. I think a lot of people have already said what I wanted to speak. The only couple of questions that I have, I think it was mentioned that this position is being created also because of the additional burden that it had on the supervisor of athletics and PE, and they had to utilize, assistants, etc. So I'm just wondering, like, with this change, are we going to impact any of the assistants as well? Is that going to be a cost saving?
It would be a cost savings if what Mrs. Chanley had brought to us was that there has been a need for, or request for an assistant to be added. Mm-hmm. So with this, the way she has recommended to structure these 2 positions, there would be no more need for an additional employee position. So
Okay.
that is the cost savings.
Okay. The second question that I have is, I understand that there's some certification requirements for the director position. So similar to what I've seen, other companies do, and school district, I think even Monroe does that. Is there a particular time frame that if somebody has to get that certification, they can still continue to become a director? As well as, like, would Monroe, pay the cost for that certification?
So a question that actually came up that was a good question is, similar to myself when I had a substandard certificate according to the public, it was called a certificate of eligibility. So a certificate of eligibility means that you have all of the credentials to go for the job, but you need to be sitting in the job to go into a mentor program to get a standard, which I now have achieved. So that being said, if someone had a certificate of eligibility in the area of principal, they could then apply for the job, because that means that they have all of the credentials and they need to be given a job to then sit in the position in order to be mentored to then get a standard principal certificate.
Okay, so based on what I've been hearing about, the supervisor, I'll be honest, I haven't had interactions with him, but, with the passionate support that I'm seeing for him, I'm just, making this, or requesting that, you see this, if there is a way that we can keep him in this, position, or whether it is by changing certain, whatever changes that you need to make, like either keep him somehow or the other, or if he needs whatever certification, we provide him the opportunity to get that certification on our cost. I'm pretty sure the taxpayers are going to be willing to do that.
I'm going to have to stop you with that because we are not discussing any employees or any personnel issues.
Okay.
The item on
So
the agenda is a job
I understand.
description,
So
not a person.
Without taking any names or anything like that, I'm basically saying if there are legible people available within the community, within our school district already, who, people who can be legible if they are provided that opportunity to get that certificate, would the school district do whatever they can to make sure that they get that. I'm not taking any names. I'm not even saying if there are other eligible candidates who may not have the certificate but can be provided that opportunity. Would we be willing to do that? As I said, I'm pretty sure the community is going to support that decision. And I'll actually say, like, I'm willing to pay for the certificate myself.
I think that's very generous of you, and I appreciate your comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good
evening. My name is Derek Arts. I reside at 31 Brandon Avenue in Monroe Township, New Jersey. First off, I would like to thank everyone that sits on this current board for the job that you do. You take time away from your families, many, many hours. I sat in the Public Service Board myself, so I know what it's like. I would like to just ask a simple question to legal counsel over there. The first bullet point, abolish the existing position of Supervisor of Athletics, Health, PE, and co-curricular.
If you could ask your questions through the chair.
Through the chair, great. Instead of abolishing the position, could we modify that position? And at the same time, in modifying the position, modify the title of the position as well? Or does it need to be abolished? Is there a state requirement that says it needs to be abolished?
That has been the practice that has been used. I will defer to Mr. Gagliardi on that.
There's no state requirement that says the position needs to be abolished. It's not a matter of state issue. It's a matter of changing both the description of the job and the criteria for the job. So that's why it's set up the way it's set up.
Mm-hmm. So, because of the situation that we're currently in, I read this last night for the first time. My impression is that someone will be losing their job. Without naming names, without talking about positions, someone is going to be losing their job because we're abolishing the existing position. That person that sits in that position currently, I couldn't do justice to Mr. Gordon Deal's representation, fine representation of the person that sits in that role right now, Mr. Dowling. I'm a father of 4 student athletes. 3 are in the high school varsity letter winners. 1 is graduating this year. She's a senior. And moving on to a D1, almost a full ride, okay? So let me say, I've lived my life around athletics. I've coached since I was 19. I continue to coach for this in this town in volunteer roles. I've come to know Mr. Dowling very, very well. And I will say that when there was a team that didn't have busing, I personally reached out to him. I explained the situation. I explained the need. And he responded because, as Mr. Gordon Deal said, he's a doer. He provided the busing for those teams to go down and compete that day. And all I asked for those teams was to come back and perform well and win. And they did that. They did that. And that was the payback and the thank you to Mr. Dowling for what he did. I think what's going on right now is it's a grave shame. It's an injustice. It's a disservice to Mr. Dowling, and it's a disservice to every member of this community right now.
Because
my 4 minutes is not up, actually.
This is
Mr.
Dowling is not on the agenda.
You're right,
it's a
correct.
job description.
You're right. So what's happening to abolish this existing position is a disservice to the members of this community. Okay, I understand what you're doing, and it's fine that you're moving the one portion out and under another role. But I think it's a disservice to abolish the position when there's no state requirement to do so. You know full well that you could modify the role, you could modify the title, you could work with the current personnel that's in the role. You know you could do that. The public out there, they don't even know this is going on, the majority of them. The ones that I've contacted today, they are shocked. Many couldn't be here tonight last minute. They had prior arrangements, but let me say it. If they knew, if everybody knew, they would be here in full force because they understand what's taking place today. There was a comment made by Mr. Fabiano, I believe his name was, about things that might come out of this. I have grave concerns. I'm a taxpayer in Monroe Township, and I have grave concerns. I see a lawsuit coming to Monroe Township, perhaps personally to some of the people that sit on this board right here. I'm going to appeal to the nobler senses of the people on this board that when you go to vote on this, that you vote with your conscience, with your heart, because this is not just a role. As much as you don't want to talk about personnel, there is a man that holds a position trying to support a family. He has done a fabulous job. The person in that role has done a fabulous job, okay? So I'm going to appeal to your nobler senses that when you go to vote on this, you do the right thing.
Thank you for your comments, so your time is up.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amelia Arts. I am a student athlete at this school, and I'm based off the information I've been hearing in this Board of Ed meetings so far. I'm hearing that our athletic director there's a new position being named, and that our athletic director, not to name personnel or anything, might not be able to stay at our school because of a principal certificate. I just want to make one comment about this, no questions or anything. He has helped me so much so far in his time here at this high school so far. I reached out to him. As I said, I signed for to run D1 cross country and track at LaSalle University, and I wanted to have my signing day on a specific day, February 7th, because my first ever cross country and track coach, that was his birthday. He had passed away, and he's very important to me. I reached out 3 days before the date to Mr. Dowling, asking and just pleading, can you please let me have my signing day on February 7th of this year? And he said, I'm going to have to talk to some people to help organize it. And he did everything in his power to get me my signing day on that day. And that has been so impactful to me, because that was the one thing I wanted. And I know none of you guys might not care about my opinion on this, but that's what I want to say. He has impacted me very dearly, and I would hate to see him lose his job because of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Arminio, Monroe. I can't even find that the change in the description on the agenda. However, I'm just going to speak being moved by the public. It's okay, I don't need to. Well, what I would like to say to this board, having been a board member for 9 years, is that when the public has issues of concern, I think sometimes it would be prudent to table the issue. I guess it is J on board action. But if you table it and go back to either policy or personnel and develop the idea about this. I mean, we just came out of a public not supporting a referendum. Why is it important to this agenda? Because sometimes we have to listen to the public and not dismiss their concerns or just be so adamant about our own position that you can't hear members of the public who seem to be passionate about an issue. So what I would ask those members of the board who have an open mind, if they think it appropriate to please table this, bring it back to committee, and maybe readjust it just because of the passion of the board. And I would also like to point out that I have often spoken of this, and Mr. Gagliardi and I have, because I didn't always know what the case was. But the case of Philip A. Bessler et al. Versus the Board of Education of West Windsor Plainsboro Regional School District was about free speech. And one of the things in it, it was held that the Board of Education really cannot stop people's comments because they don't like the content of the speech. So I'd like you to keep that in mind, and that gentleman won his case against the West Windsor Plainsboro Regional School District because of his comments. It was a First Amendment, Bessler's federal civil rights claim alleging that the board violated his free speech rights guaranteed by the First Amendment because they were unhappy with the content of his speech on a regular basis. I'd just like to point that out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucille Panos, Monroe Township. I'm looking at item S on the agenda and the salary column. There's a number of salaries that have a dollar amount, but then there's a majority of salaries that only have a percentage. In an effort of transparency or to public knowledge, how much are those percentages? How come there's dollar amounts on some and not on others? And one actually stands out. All of them are 17%, but one is 34% of additional contract. What's the meaning of it?
Yes, oh, yes, please, Mrs. Jones.
Whoever.
So for 17% and even for 34%, you'll never see a dollar amount because it's 17% of the employee's salary. If they're doing more than one class as an extra class, we have a lot of leaves, a lot of medical leaves, a lot of personal leaves. When someone goes out on leave, it's very hard to get a regular teacher. It's actually more of an expense. It's actually more of a savings to keep one of our own teachers doing it. So you will always see 17% if they're doing one class, 34% if they're doing two, and it's the percentage of their salary. So there's never a dollar amount because it changes for each individual employee.
But each individual employee has a dollar amount salary. So if you were going to give, you should be able to figure out 17% of a dollar amount salary is how much.
Okay. So respectfully, I think that's great. That's something that I would bring to the Board of Education. This is standard protocol, the way it's been done for I don't know how many years. However, if the board would like us to then update the board agenda for the exact amount of the 17 and or 34%, if that's what the board asks us to do, that will be done.
Thank you for that consideration. Some people had mentioned because as people retire, they want the biggest salary at the end. I don't know if that's true, but anyway, if you could post the salaries, that would negate that type of comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there anybody else wishing to speak? No, we'll close the public forum. The next item on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent's Report. Dr. Lehman?
Sure, just a few highlights. This week, the district's people personnel staff continued its district-wide information campaign for Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. They're going to continue throughout the month in collaboration with our CPAG, which is our Special Education Parents Advocacy Group, to support awareness of developmental disabilities and the work we do within the district to foster the inclusive environment. Some kind of highlights from academics. Yesterday, 3 teams of our Latin program went to Princeton University for our annual New Jersey Classics competition. 2 of our teams, Latin 1 and Latin 2, they won second place. Little bragging rights, they scored higher than J.P. Stevens, Edison High School, Princeton High School, Hopewell Valley, Hunterdon, and Franklin. So, outstanding job. And then finally, we're also proud to announce that on March 14th, the Monroe Township High School Honors Wind Ensemble earned a gold rating at the New York Elite Music Festival at Carnegie Hall. So congratulations, and the Honors Wind Ensemble is directed by Mr. Martin Griffin, and he's assisted by Mr. Sean Nagpal. So congratulations to all our academics and our winter athletes as we head into the spring, summer seasons. Good luck to those athletes as well.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the Superintendent's Report. Mrs. Chanley?
Thank you. So good evening to all. It's very obvious that we're all saddened by the loss of the referendum. And in moving forward, I've already have calls out to make meetings with both the mayor of the township, with all 3, rather, the mayor of the township, also with the county executive superintendent, as well as the commissioner of education, to ask for their assistance for next steps, what our abilities will be. A lot of the information that's out there, we want to make sure we get accurate information. We constantly hear, fail it 2 times, and then the state comes along and makes you build it. There's a lot of information that is not accurate. We want to make sure that we get the correct, accurate information. I want to say a very pleasant and exceptional thank you to those that did support the referendum. We were welcomed in 6 or 7 of the active adult retirement communities, which was wonderful to go. We held as many informational sessions as possible, and we want to thank those people that did support the referendum. And we are going to, revisit the whole situation, move forward, and ask for help, especially at the township level. So we have a phone call in looking for an appointment to meet first and foremost with the mayor to see where that goes. And, it's a very sad time, but it is what it is. And on that note, I will just get directly to business. For a 10-member vote, it is recommended the board approve the attached personnel items A through W with the exception of item T.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Yeah. Second?
Second.
All right, is there any questions for Mrs.
Yes.
Chandler? Yes.
I have a question. Item U, number 1, is a position for a mechanic. And I remember a conversation after last month's meeting when we had the 2 lead mechanics put in, that there wasn't going to be a need for a replacement. So I'm just curious as to what this position is.
That's a mechanic that was never, let me double check with Dr. Emmons. Isn't that a mechanic that was never filled?
Yeah, it could be. Nothing has changed with the
Nothing's
plan.
changed. Nothing's changed. That was a position that wasn't previously filled.
Okay,
It's
so
not in
this isn't to replace the
No.
lead person who went into,
No.
who was it? Okay.
Correct.
That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, can we get a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
So this is letter T. It is recommended by the Assistant Superintendent of Schools that the board approve the following certificated staff at the following step-on guide.
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions? Okay, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano?
Yes.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Under personnel, for a 9-member vote, it is recommended the board approve the attached personnel items X through AD.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, are there any questions? All right, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the motion? Yeah, because you said.
I think so. Thank you. I couldn't read it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alvarez. I will repeat it. My error. Under 9-member vote, it is recommended the board approve the attached personnel items X through AO.
Motion. Second.
Okay. Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. Under a 10-member vote, board action, it is recommended the board approve the attached board action items A through L.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Can I?
Second.
I'd like to make a motion to approve that item J and K be postponed indefinitely.
Second.
That would be,
Is that a motion to table?
No,
It's
it's
kill
to
the
kill the
main
main motion.
Kill the main motion.
You're talking about rescinding.
No, kill the main
It
motion.
says on here for the precedence of motions chart, it's to kill the main motion. I move that the motion be postponed indefinitely, which means it would be
Killed.
removed until
For a later discussion.
further, it comes back up.
Well,
Yes.
it's not clear to me, and obviously at least not clear to one member of the board, what it is you're intending to do. Tabling it, so there's a motion on the floor, right? So you can vote for it, you can vote against it, or you can vote to table it. What is it you're trying to do?
Mr. Gagliardi, are we able to remove a specific item from the motion?
So, all right, so the motion's on the floor, right?
Right.
So either by way of friendly amendment, that is the person who just moved and seconded the motion, you could ask them if they would be willing to separate that out from their motion. And if the mover and seconder agree to do that, it's done. If they don't agree to do that, you can ask for a motion for a separate vote on items J and K. So I ask again, so it's clear to the board, what is it you want to do?
So we would like to move to postpone the motion indefinitely.
Yeah.
It's in Robert's rules.
So if If I may speak, Mrs.
Indefinitely or to table
If we're
it?
looking to
Table,
postpone this,
use the mic,
further
Gonzalez.
discussion of a committee and then come back here, is that the, we would like to postpone for,
That's
It
not what you're
says,
saying.
so there's two different things on here. So there is one where it says that you can postpone it to a certain time, and then there's another where it's kill the main motion, where it's I move that the motion be postponed indefinitely. We're looking at the second.
the postpone indefinitely.
But I think first we have to either make, Mr.
Right.
Geiger, the friendly amendment to remove it from the main motion.
Right, so the problem, in a rabbit quote, is that the motion's already on the floor, right? So I know what you're trying to do now, right? And I'm giving you the vehicles available to you to do what it is you're seeking to do, right? So the motion's on the floor, so you can ask for the friendly amendment, the mover and second, to remove it from the motion. Or, in order to facilitate what you want to do, you can ask for a separate vote to pull that out of the vote that's on the floor, so you can act on it separately.
Okay, so then can I ask for a friendly amendment to
Remove it from the main vote.
remove it from the main vote?
It meaning J and K. So who made
Yeah.
the motion?
And then
I think you seconded it.
I seconded it.
Who made the motion?
Karen?
Karen.
All right, so and who seconded the motion?
Mr. Tufano?
All right, so if Ms. Bierman and Mr. Tufano agree, then without further action, J and K can be set aside for a separate vote. So that's the first step.
And if we don't?
What's that?
And if we don't?
If you don't agree, then there would be a motion to separate them out.
All right, so let's make the motion to separate it out.
All right, so the friendly amendment is not agreed to. So is there a motion and second to separate out J and K?
I make a motion to separate out J and K on the agenda this evening.
A second.
Okay. So now there's a motion to have J and K voted on separately. And that's the motion that's currently before the board. This is not a yes or no vote on any action item. It's a
Right.
vote
On
on
the
whether or not
motion.
to separate J and K from the vote that's on the floor.
And it's a roll call vote.
This is a
Yes.
roll call vote.
Does anybody have any questions before we have a roll call?
No, let's just do it.
No. Ms. Allen, may we have a roll
Yes.
call?
Ms. DePayne?
It's to separate the motion.
Oh, yes, separate the motion, yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. Ms. Belko?
No.
Mr. Tufano?
No.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
No.
Ms. Skirby?
No.
Motion passes.
Okay. No, hold it. We'll get you there. So now, the motion on the floor is still the motion on the floor, except items J and K are not a part of it. Okay, so the motion now placed before the board for action is the superintendent's recommendation on all of the items in this resolution except J and K. No. Do not.
Right, may we get a roll call, please?
Okay, yes. Ms. Ratner?
Jeez. Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes, except item D, number 4, then the fourth item down, no.
Okay, Ms. Scott?
Yes, abstain D.
Okay. Ms. Bora?
Yes, except item D, number 4 is a no. Everything else is a yes. Number 4 on item D is a no.
Okay. Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano?
Yes, no on D.
Ms. Bierman?
No on D, yes on all others.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
So, motion. Okay, so we have 4 on D, 4 noes on D4, and 1 abstain. Okay. So the motion passes. So, yeah. Motion passes.
All right, now we.
No.
Except for
Did, all passed, did,
Not J.
J and K have not been acted on yet. but
Right.
did Everything
D.
passed, did D pass?
D number 4, right,
Well,
there was
there's,
an extension of 4.
no, because some of them were just D4 and some were just D.
Right.
Does an extension like
So
D.
D.
No, abstention has
D
nothing to do with it. You have- did you
D4
have
is
more-
included
You only
in
need a
all the
majority.
yeses.
That's correct. If you have more yeses than nos, then it passed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
No, so she doesn't on
So you don't
D.
need a majority.
So D.
No.
D, you've got votes no on one specific element of D, and then you've got no votes on D altogether that count also, so. The fourth.
D, so
item.
D4.
Right, so D4
The fourth
fails.
item.
Right, but the rest of D will pass.
So everything passed except D4?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So now, what's before the board for a separate vote are items J and K. Okay, so,
I want to make a motion to table.
Second.
I'll second.
all right, so there, as the board, I believe, knows, and everyone apparently brought their Roberts rules with them, which makes for an exciting meeting.
Yeah.
No debate on a motion to
Not
table.
mine, too.
So it's a roll call, yes or no vote.
Table, what are we tabling? The same
Right.
exact wording?
Well,
Like,
you're not,
You're not
can't change
referring it
anything.
back to committee, you're tabling it for, it doesn't,
well, I'm not doing anything.
no, I mean,
Just to
I'm
clarify,
speaking
because
generally.
there's- It
So-
says that
so-
you can table till a certain date, or you can postpone it indefinitely, right?
Table to
She's
discuss
tabled
at
it to
the,
discuss
at the
it.
next personnel committee, and
That wasn't a motion, so that's why I
Yeah.
want
Personnel.
clarification.
Okay, hang on one second. The motion is
I
simply
think
to
it- I
table
think
it.
it
You
should
are,
be brought
you're
to
the
the-
personnel chair, you're not. So I will ask the person who tabled it if it's
Yes.
her intention to bring it back to committee.
Yes, my intention is to bring it back to committee.
Okay, so it is being tabled. If the motion passes, it is being tabled and it is being referred back to committee.
Thank you.
If it doesn't pass, then it remains before the board for
Then it has to be
further
voted on
excitement.
today.
Or whatever, yes.
Okay, Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
no,
Ms. Scott?
yes, to table it, to bring it to the personnel.
Yes, okay. Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Mr. Tofano?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Mr. Aguilardi, this is just in description, and it's tabling the description, so there's no
Correct.
issue, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so then yes.
Yes, okay. Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
No.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so motion passes.
Okay, so just, I'm going to repeat this, it may be clear for everyone on the board. I'm sure the public may want some clarification. So J and K are not being acted on this evening. They're being referred back to the Personnel Committee, and you may or may not see them in the same form or in a different form at some future meeting, obviously duly authorized and advertised. That's enough from the board attorney, I hope, because the more the board attorney speaks, the more the meeting quality diminishes, but I thank you.
Under board action, 9-member vote, it is recommended the board approve the attached board action items M through S.
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Mr. Tofano?
Yes.
Ms. Bora?
Yes, no on Q.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
No on Q, yes on all else.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that concludes my report.
The next item on the agenda is the Business Administrator's Report.
Okay, it is recommended that board action items A through H be approved by consent roll call under 10-member vote.
Motion.
Second.
I have a question.
Okay.
Item 4, this is the third meeting I've been to that I've had to vote on an ethics issue, and I have no idea what I'm voting on. We haven't ever been, none of these have been discussed with the board in closed session, and I'm starting to feel uncomfortable approving these.
Mr. Gagliardi?
All right, I was getting ready to leave.
Sorry.
So there has not been, nor would there be, an executive session discussion about these. What you are seeing essentially is the board satisfying its statutory obligation to provide indemnification and defense to a board member who's accused of ethics violation. And at the preliminary stage, the accusation is not public. So that's why it's not made public. If you, as a board member, wanted to know generally what is this, I think that information would be provided privately. But that's all that would be appropriate at this time. So what you see typically is this: the district has insurance coverage for this. The district approves counsel and the rates because the district has a $5,000 deductible, so there is some public money involved. So you see these routinely, but I say with all due respect, there's really not much you can do. If you were to vote this down, you'd be violating state statute. So it is a mechanical exercise. It's an important one because there's $5,000 of public money involved, but that's the nature of the exercise.
Right, that's my concern. It was 5,000 2 meetings ago, 5,000 last meeting, 5,000 this meeting. It's adding up.
Yes.
Because pretty soon we could pay for the roof at Apple Park. So.
Well, I thought you were going to say through the roof, which would have been.
It took a long time to get the 3 million.
All right.
Do you have any other questions?
That was it.
No. Ms. Ratner?
Yep, I just wanted to follow up on that. So for two things, for board members, if they were to want the information regarding the ethics complaints, we don't need to Oprah the school ethics commission for that information, correct?
Well, again, at the preliminary phase, that information is not available as a matter of law.
Right. Just like in general. I guess my other concern is, being that, as Ms. Alvarez had said, there are multiple, ethics complaints, and because it's not listed what the actual case is, right? And, people are using, because there's only so many attorneys in the world, I guess, I don't know, but people are using attorneys, so like, if you have an ethics complaint and you have to recuse, but it's not listed here, how do you know if this is something that you need to recuse on, if that makes sense?
It does make sense. My experience here is that a board member knows when it's their ethics case. I honestly don't know that the recusal poses a problem. As I said, this is not the same as, let's say, a discretionary trip to Atlantic City for a board member. The board is obligated to do this by statute. So, if I may, Madam President,
yes.
the process is, it works like this, right? So the board member who is accused typically advises the board office. Because we've seen a lot of these, the board office knows to refer this to the insurance carrier. Typically, I'm copied. We have not had any issue with your insurance carrier, but if there were a problem, that is that they didn't afford coverage when they should, I would get involved. If asked, the board office or my office advises the board member that they are entitled as a matter of law to provide indemnification and can seek their own attorney. They can get recommendations from any number of sources. When they have their attorney, the attorney proposes an hourly rate. Naturally, the fees have to be reasonable, so if they were to choose, I'll pick him because I know he's not available, Johnny Cochran for $2,000 an hour, I would
so
probably...
not available.
Not available. I would advise the board office, and I would volunteer to do it, to have a conversation with the board member that is not reasonable, right, that sort of fee. But other than the reasonableness of the fee, and in my time here, I've not had to be involved. It goes before the board approves it, the bills are paid, the carrier takes over the case.
No, I want to be clear, it's not a matter of voting yes versus voting no. It's a matter of if there's ethics charges that are with the same firm that are close together. I'm trying to be very vague. How do you know if it's pertaining to how does a person know if it's pertaining to them if that information is not?
It doesn't matter.
The board
because you
member
don't have
would
to
know,
recuse.
The board member would know.
The board member, in other words, the board member typically is told, the carrier, it's fine, there's no problem, it's going to be on the agenda next month. So it's, in my experience here, the board member is very keenly aware of the fact that they want to make sure that the carrier has picked up the case and has assigned counsel. So I've not been aware of any circumstance where a board member wasn't sure if this was their matter that the board was blessing. But certainly, if there were an issue, the board member should ask the board secretary, is that one mine? Or on an occasion, and it may have happened, where there are two being approved, should I recuse myself from one of them? So if there were any concern, if a board member weren't aware or weren't certain, they should ask the board secretary. All of this goes through the board secretary, and then the carrier or my office is involved as needed.
Are there any other questions? No? May we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Fabiano?
Recuse. I'm sorry, yes to all recuse on item A4.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Mr. Tofano?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes to all. There was one item in the bill list or the addendum that I believe I need to recuse on because of my spouse. I'm trying to find it and I'm having the concern, but
okay.
Bill list pertaining to Ratner.
Okay. Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes to all, recuse on item G for the symposium training.
Okay, so motion passes. It is recommended that board action item I be approved by consent roll call for a 9-member vote.
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions? Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. DePayne?
Yes.
Mr. Tofano?
Yes.
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and that is the end of the Business Administrator's report. The next item on the agenda is the Board President's report. So I'd like to echo what Mrs. Chanley said. I want to thank everyone for their support of our school district. I attended almost every referendum presentation and had the great pleasure of meeting many of our residents around the community. While it is disappointing that it failed, we will move on as a board and continue to work collaboratively with the administration to address the needs of the district. We started a long history here in Monroe of referendums and not failing referendums. We started with a kindergarten ballot question back in 2011 to ask the community if they wanted the board to allocate approximately $650,000 to full-day kindergarten. That ballot question got a resounding no, and the district has since not explored it further. We then had an ad hoc committee under Dr. Hamilton that ended with redistricting of elementary schools. The admin at the time felt strongly the redistricting would solve the issues. The parents felt it was a Band-Aid, and that Band-Aid fell off quickly. Dr. Hamilton left the district shortly thereafter. Then, under the recommendation of Dr. Kozak, another ad hoc committee was created. At that time, they tried using an outside firm to facilitate the process. That referendum in 2018 was only for a new middle school. That failed in March of 2018. Upon feedback from the community, the need to address the high school was spoken by the community. Dr. Kozak was not recommended for renewal after that and left the district. Then the board hired Mr. Goodall as acting superintendent, and a referendum was put forth the next year in 2019 with a two-pronged question. Question 1 was the same as the 2018 referendum, and question 2 was in addition to build a 3-story tower onto the high school only if the middle school in question 1 was approved. That failed too. A lot of feedback after that was that the two-pronged question was confusing and it was too expensive. Mr. Goodall was not hired that year as superintendent and was replaced with Dr. Alvick. Dr. Alvick decided to go with a new ad hoc committee that explored taking out the 9th grade from the high school, which was overwhelmingly not received well. Dr. Alvick started the process and retired midway. We hired Mrs. Chanley as acting and then permanent, and she continued the process last year to get us through the last year and a half to get us to yesterday's referendum. Not only has the change in leadership over the past 10 years been very disruptive, it has added to the lack of trust from the community. The predominant complaint I have heard when out talking to residents or reading social media is that the community is disenfranchised by the overbuilding in Monroe. They came out and voted yes for the high school back in the early 2000s, and then came back and voted yes for the Oak Tree School, then voted again for more money to be given to the high school to complete. Residents are saying they don't want to come back and vote yes anymore. They feel like the overbuilding will never end and will keep coming back to them for more and more money. There's a lack of trust because we've heard repeatedly from parents, residents, taxpayers that the overdevelopment burden falls on the residents to pay the overcrowding issues. As mentioned, the district has already reached out to the mayor's office, county executive superintendent, and commissioner of education's office to set up meetings to discuss the next steps for Monroe, because it's apparent that we cannot pass a referendum here in Monroe, and we need to ask for guidance on how to move forward to ensure that we provide the best facilities for our staff and students here in Monroe Township. And that concludes my report. The next item on our agenda is other board business. Is there any business to bring before the board? Ms. Spearman?
Thank you. I would like to extend a thank you to the 8,000+ community members who cast a yes or no vote in the referendum proposal. In November's general election, 50% of our registered voters participated. In this recent referendum, it was 20%. I'm certain the district will be unpacking the election data and exploring options, and will come to the board in the coming months with a proposal for next steps. The staff involved in the referendum process have been phenomenal in their efforts, and my sincere thank you extends to each of them. For now, it is important to turn our attention to the annual budget, as highlighted in the presentation and also discussed in the Finance Committee meeting. In addition to the defeat of the referendum proposal, we are left in a situation where fiscal accountability is going to become critical. Long gone are the days of assuming provision of what we've become accustomed to is affordable and sustainable. Our district cherishes its high bar and many extras delivered to students and staff, and also extended to the community at large. However, the reality is the growth in demand has outpaced the revenue, and we will need change to overcome the gap. I commend the superintendent, assistant superintendent, the business administrator, and their teams for continuously looking for opportunities to do more with less, to course correct and restructure, not to just rubber stamp and do what has always been done for the sake of comfort and ease. Making change is hard. Making change isn't always popular. Being a leader when things are tough allows the real strengths of individuals and organizations to emerge. I'm confident there is a leadership team here that will achieve the best possible outcomes with the available resources. Thank you.
Mr. Tufano?
I would like to take this time and congratulate the Monroe Township High School competitive cheer team. They won states, and I wish them all luck in their journey to Florida this week to hopefully take home the national title.
Good luck. Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Ratner?
Yep. So, to piggyback on the comments, I did want to thank everyone who went out and voted. Regardless of how you voted, I think it's always important to just remember we are one community, and, I really hope we can keep that in mind as we move forward. There was a quote Henry Ford said, "Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, working together brings success." And I think that the more we can all collaborate, we've got intelligent and creative residents, and we've got great staff members, and the more we work together, the better we'll be. I also did want to say, I know that there were a lot of staff members, administrators who spent a lot of time at night working on this, 24/7, and I do appreciate all of that time that was put in. And that's as far as the referendum. I completed my governance 2 training, so I just wanted to make that aware, along with my, my fellow second-year board members, Ms. Bohr and Ms. Fabi. I don't want to steal your thunder, but actually all happened to sign up on the same night, which was fun. And so, 2 down. I wanted to, thank the teachers. I know, it's not easy teaching when there's limited space. I have the personal experience where at one point I was teaching elementary band in a closet. And so I'm really well aware that it can be hard working in that reduced capacity. And our students are still thriving despite that. And it's not easy and it's challenging, and I'm not saying we should not improve it, but I do give a lot of kudos to the teachers to working in that. April is the delegate assembly. Once I receive the packet of resolutions, I will send it to the full board as I had done. I've been trying to attend each of the county meetings as well. Unfortunately, the March Middlesex County meeting happened to be today, so I'm here. But I also did find out, for any of you who are unaware, if there is a county meeting that you see an interesting topic, you can actually attend that meeting as well. So, there's a lot of great trainings, both in person, online. I've always been a professional development junkie, so, I really do enjoy doing that. And then, I guess, this month is Music in Our Schools Month. That is something I just wanted to recognize. We have, a wonderful amount of musicians in our town. We really just have a lot of great programs. The athletic program is phenomenal. Musicians, academics, we really do well everywhere. And so I did that. And then finally, I know we had discussed at one point drafting a potential resolution with the Legislative Action and Community Engagement Committee. This is something that I know we would bring back to our committee, but I would want to suggest just two things based on what I was hearing from people who were voting the referendum. As much as it might be the overbuilding, it's not necessarily that, as is the fact that the builders aren't paying for it. And so I would love for us to draft legislation that asks legislators or demands legislators look at legislation for impact fees. It's illegal right now. Just like we can change things, they can change things. So that would be one. The other is the one that we've been talking about forever. I attended as an individual, private individual, because I cannot speak on behalf of the board, but I attended the town council meeting in January. I think, Ms. Borer, you were actually there when I spoke, and I think Ms. Arminia was as well. And I had actually just requested, in addition to other things, that they reach out to their fellow legislators to discuss school funding, because it is a major problem. We're seeing it in our budget. We're seeing it in our referendum. And if we can get that fixed, we don't have to sit here and try to pull pennies from all of these different places. So those might be my two suggestions, but I guess, as chair of the committee, if there's other suggestions that may come forward that we might be able to look into. And that is everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And just want to piggyback on that, I did attend the council meeting last Monday, and that is one of the topics that I spoke on behalf of the board on, asking the mayor if they would go back and, the Mayor Delina expressed that he had penned a letter to the governor thanking him for the school funding, and, it was, I wanted to speak on behalf of the board because, yes, while we absolutely appreciate anything the state gives us, it's obviously not enough. And what I had asked the mayor is the next time he decides to pen a letter to Trenton, to the governor, maybe he asks that they bring back impact fees, because that is the problem. And, unfortunately, we have builders in this town that come in here and they pay for campaigns of people running for Board of Education, for town council, but they do not pay for our schools. And that really is a sad, unfortunate fact. And that is something that I would request my fellow board members to come with me and attend the town council meetings. And maybe you start there too with your committee, writing to, the committee on, we can develop a letter through the committee to send to the township, because that's where we need to start first. We need to get the township and the mayor and the council behind us to fight for our schools, because it's fallen on deaf ears for way too many years. We had legislation written years ago about changing the formula. We had a fair funding committee. Mr. Chiarella, former board member, headed that. We all went to Senator Greenstein's office. She made sure she wasn't there that day, and we dropped the letter off under her door. Went nowhere. So I think we really need to, as a board, hold our local officials accountable first and ask them to join us with our fight, because until we get them behind us, nothing's going to sadly change, because that's the history that we've seen. So I applaud you for going to that council meeting, and maybe the rest of the board can think about coming as well, or writing to the council as well. Does anybody else have any other board business?
Mrs. Skirby, may I?
Yes, Ms. Borer?
I do want to echo what Ms. Bierman said, a lot of what Ms. Bierman said about the referendum. And I want to personally thank all of the administrative staff and you yourself, Mrs. Kirby, who were present in so many community sessions. I attended a few, and to see all our principals, facilities director, BA, superintendent, assistant superintendent, all of them there every night, night after night, sometimes twice a day. I think they gave it their all to educate the community about the need and the plan. But this is how democracy worked, and our community has chosen not to vote down another referendum. And so on that line, I do want to start the discussion, and I know Mrs. Chanley has explained that it is, there is a process to going to state. I believe Freehold has done that.
I already called him today. I called that superintendent.
You beat me to it. My ask right now was that, can we please talk to district, and we need to now explore that avenue. Yes, we should still deliberate as a board as to what is that other plan that our taxpayers might like, but at the same time, we have to look at what our children deserve better for whatever is happening in the town with the building and the impact fees. It's going to eventually impact our programs, and it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. And so we've been trying for 5 years. It's time to look at the alternative. So thank you for already starting thank you.
Ms. Alvarez?
Hi, I wanted to spotlight our school social workers in honor of School Social Work Week, which took place March 5th through the 11th. The theme for this year's School Social Work Week was We Rise. When school social workers are confronted with challenges, heightened anxieties, and anticipated difficulties, they face these challenges with strength and resilience and rise up, supporting their students, families, and school communities. School social workers serve as vital members of the school's education team, playing a central role in creating partnerships between the home, school, and community to ensure academic success. They are needed now more than at any time in recent memory, as more students are struggling with mental and behavioral health disorders, with nearly 1 in 6 children from ages 2 to 8 years old having a diagnosed mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. School-based mental health programs are critical to early identification of and early intervention for mental health problems. As licensed mental health professionals in schools, school social workers provide necessary assessment, interventions, counseling, outreach, and community referrals. Monroe Township Schools is fortunate to have 8 school social workers throughout the district providing services to our students. As a board member and a fellow school social worker, tonight we acknowledge and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Anybody else have any board business? Ms. Belko?
I took the opportunity while everyone was talking about impact fee bills, and I did a little research here, and there was a bill that was introduced in March 7th of last year, and it made 25% progression and is sitting in the Senate Community and Urban Affairs Committee. So write to the Senate Community and Urban Affairs Committee and ask about impact fees. The legislation is out there. There's been several. This has been floating out since 2020. We did have impact fees in the state back in 2000. The then governor, Christy Todd Whitman, did an executive order and did away with impact fees. So if you need a little history, that's where the history is. So impact fees are, they have been here, and we can go back and try them again. We have, if this is the way we're going to go as a committee, this is my suggestion here. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank administration, Dr. Lehman, Ms. Chanley, Mr. Moraldo. There was an incredible effort and energy that went into educating the public with the facts about the referendum, and I appreciate all the work and effort that you did. We fell short of our goal, but I'd appreciate if I could speak. Thank you. We fell short of our goal, but we will move forward as my other colleagues have said, and we'll make the next appropriate steps to house our children appropriately so that our educators can educate appropriately and not on carts and not in closets. So thank you.
Anybody have anything else?
Ms. Kirby, I just wanted to piggyback on what Ms. Belko said. I know you were with me and Ms. Shanley as well when we went to the legislative panel back in November. I cannot recall if it was stalled in the Assembly or in the Senate, the state, the funding formula task force. So I can look this up again, but to that extent, we should obviously look at some of the legislation that's at least moving. So perhaps if we can look into that, that would be great.
Sure.
Assembly Bill 5145, excuse me, sorry to be interruptive. Assembly Bill A 5145 died in committee, and Senate Bill 1324 is currently the one that is sitting in the Community and Urban Affairs Committee.
All right, anybody else? All right, the next item on the agenda is the public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board, please come to the microphone. You have 4 minutes. State your name and municipality.
Pradeep Melam, Monroe Township. In the first public forum, I specifically said, like, I'm afraid to send my kids to Applegate School. There is a reason for that. There is a particular board member's spouse. He went on a Facebook and described that Applegate School is a dump. It's a pit. It's toxic. I have the screenshots. If anybody wants, I can share them. It's toxic. And he went into a length that if it is my choice, I would not let my kids step into the school. So I'm asking this board and administration, what is the status of the Applegate? How toxic is it? How bad it is, and everything. And I request that particular board member, if she agrees with her husband, she should fight for the better facilities within the Applegate. If she don't agree, she should condemn publicly. So, any status update on Applegate? What is the status currently on Applegate?
We've had this conversation numerous times. Mr. Tate, would you like to make a statement about the condition of Applegate and the comments?
The safety.
Safety, toxicities? I know if I say it wrong, I'll be all over Facebook, so I apologize that I probably said it wrong.
I'm not sure specifically what the comments were, but what was addressed many times during our presentations was the presence of asbestos in the school. I can tell you that asbestos in the school is managed through our HERA management plan as required by the state, and we probably have removed about 98% of the asbestos from Applegate School.
And so the roof and the mold?
Structurally, the building is sound.
Are we doing any third-party safety assessments in our school district at all?
So we are required through the HERA plan, which has been discussed in detail regarding asbestos. Anytime we have an issue with any type of water, we bring in Dr. Lynch to do samplings. And to my understanding, we've had no issue of any kind, and everything's been negative, and everything's been addressed, and we continue to address whatever we need to address.
Yeah, if this particular board member is not like either condemning or agreeing to the status of it, it's a slap on the parents that were sending like 475 kids to that building, and then at least like 60 to 70 staff members are working over there. That's it.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Excuse me, Mr. Fabiano, you're out of order. You're out of order, Mr. Fabiano. Yeah, you are. Good evening, Mr. Oleski.
Yep, good evening. Michael Oleski, 50 Mayberry Avenue. Shaking now. Here to share some ideas and thoughts with you folks. And I've lived here for, 34 years now? And maybe it's only been 7 or 8 years, or maybe 6 or 7 years that I've been involved coming to the meetings. And it's a good thing I have, because I think now the pieces kind of come together for me. So again, I speak from experience in private industry, but some of these things I think apply here as well. As you go forward, a couple of ideas or thoughts. Please don't make any assumptions that you know why the referendum failed, and by all means, make an effort to collaborate with the community. I'm not sure if that means maybe going out to some of these places once again to have a heart-to-heart talk with them. But by all means, take the time to listen to people, to make sure that you focus on the root causes, I guess, of why the referendum failed. I spent some time probably the last year or two, reading, and I understand, of course, that there's other school districts that have a lot more money. But I know I've read that it's pretty common, that some school districts actually have a master plan for capital improvements or capital facilities. In other words, a long-term plan that addresses things like school overcrowding, and maybe in particular here in Monroe, provision for full-day kindergarten. So I'd like you to give some thought to, maybe not just focusing on the next referendum, but maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, where do we have to go with regard to school facilities here in Monroe? And I certainly understand, and it was a good reminder again today about the budget. But I think you really have got to consider hiring an independent consultant to create this master plan I just got finished talking about. And this is actually somewhat like what the township did with its own master plan. I suspect the list of consultants that would be considered for such a job would be different, maybe totally different than what the township actually looked at. But I know those folks are out there. I remember reading about a number of them on the New Jersey School Board's site that could potentially come in and lend a hand, because I just feel that, again, speaking from experience here, the various factions in the town, I don't think are going to work together. I'm just going to say it in plain English. Without maybe an independent consultant kind of overseeing that effort. At least that's my opinion. And again, maybe to reinforce things, you really got to collaborate with the community. Collaborate with the community, just like you're talking about collaborating between the Board of Education and the school district. Please involve the community as you go forward. And I guess one further thought or idea here for you. I know, I think it's important that you start looking at, what if we have to go above the 2% cap? So a thought here, of course, is, what about our surrounding school districts? Are any of them actually budgeting now above 2%? Maybe you could start maybe opening some discussions with them to find out just how they handle their budget. And I know ours is kind of special because of the minimal funding we get from the state.
Thank you for your comments. Your time
I'm
has
sorry.
expired.
Yep.
That's okay.
Yep.
That's okay, Mr. Oleski. Thank you for your comments.
Oh, you're welcome.
Our surrounding towns, lucky for them, they get millions and tens of millions of dollars more in state aid. If Monroe got half of that state aid, we wouldn't be going out to our residents for a referendum. So, I mean, that is the issue that we have here. And we did go through several senior communities, as well as having 2 forums at our own public schools, and the number one thing that kept coming up time and time again from the residents is they do not want to pay more in taxes. They do not want to. They say they're overtaxed. They don't want to pay $1 more. They don't believe that this is that there's not going to be overbuilding that's going to cause more schools to be needed. And I mean, I could pull out my phone and read you message after message after message that I received from people saying, I'm sorry, I'm overtaxed and I can't pay $1 more. That's from, young parents, middle-aged parents, and our seniors. That is the resounding message that we got everywhere we went. Was the number one question was the money.
Just one quick comment. In all honesty, Ms. Kirby, there's other reasons that people voted no, and you guys really got to flush them all out.
Well, thank you for your comments.
All right, thanks.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Good evening.
Hi, Rebecca Michelow, Englishtown, formerly a resident of Monroe Township. I just wanted to share my experience as a parent in this school district. My daughter was a 7th grade student at Applegarth in 2009 when Miss Chanley was principal of that school. My daughter was happy, full of life, had many friends. I can't remember a night where my house wasn't full of kids. We had a death in our family that year and we went to Florida for a week. When we came home, those friends that had been in my home daily had started a nasty rumor about my daughter. It spread throughout the school quickly. My daughter was being called names and bullied daily. I contacted the principal, Miss Chanley, who said she would look into it. Things only got worse. My daughter didn't want to go to school. She became physically ill if I pushed her to go. She wanted to die and had plans to make that happen. I took her to a psychiatrist who diagnosed her with PTSD. The doctor recommended my daughter get home instruction until she was stable. I communicated this to Miss Chanley, the guidance office, and the school nurse, and inquired about home instruction and was told it would be considered. I was surprised one morning just after that when a Monroe Township police officer knocked on my door. The police officer was sent by Miss Chanley to drag my daughter into school. I obviously did not allow that to happen. This is how Miss Chanley thought the bullying should be handled, by bullying the victim. A lot happened, but I'm giving you the short version of my story. Miss Chanley's treatment of my daughter made my daughter feel as though she did something wrong. My daughter was asked by Chanley and other staff members if the rumors were true that were being spread about her, or if she just made up false allegations because she was jealous of the other girls. Miss Chanley bullied my daughter and my family. Miss Chanley violated my daughter's confidentiality and told the parents of the bullies about my daughter's psychiatric treatment. As a result, other parents wouldn't allow their children to interact with my daughter, leading to my daughter's social isolation. My daughter was labeled as troubled. Things got bad, really bad. I was at Stop and Shop, and 2 parents in front of me in the deli line were discussing my daughter and my family and the nasty rumor. We pulled our children out of Monroe Township schools and sent them to St. Bart's in East Brunswick. We left our home in Monroe and moved to Manalapan. My daughter was never okay again. I know the way Miss Chanley treated her made her feel worthless. She started making new friends that did not treat her right. She was different. She had a bad reputation now and everybody knew it. She was raped at 16 by a 21-year-old Monroe Township man. He had a younger brother who knew my daughter and was in school with her when these rumors were going around. I believe his brother sought her out because he knew she was an easy target given her low self-esteem. He drugged her, raped her, and got her pregnant. We didn't know about the rape until a few months after my grandson was born. We assumed the father was a boy my daughter was dating. After 5 years, the father came into the picture. He got 50-50 custody. He abused my grandson on his first visit and killed him on April 2nd, 2021. I believe our lives would have been different if Chanley had handled the bullying properly. Miss Chanley, you are a bully, and you support and enable other bullies, and you should have no oversight over the children in Monroe or anywhere else. Thank you for hearing me.
I want to make a statement that a situation that you are referring to, every statement that came out of your mouth was a blatant lie. I will no longer sit here over a year now and have people lie on me and think that you have a right to publicly make up statements that are false. I think it is disgusting that you as a mother who has had such great loss, and I feel terribly sorry for your loss, would utilize the tragedies in your life to use it as a venomous, blatant lie about me. I take great pride in how I run my life and my job, and you should be ashamed that you took the tragedies in your own life to bring forth disgusting lies and allegations that are unsubstantiated, and I am now finished. Thank you very much.
Seeing no one else, we will close public forum.
There's somebody there.
It's closed.
I closed public forum, I'm sorry. We don't need another closed session. We did all of our business in our first one. So our next scheduled Board of Education meeting is March 29th, 2023. It's a special Board of Ed meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Ms. Kirby, that's at 7:15 and not 6:30, right? I just wanted to clarify. The special meeting is at 7:15 and not 6:30?
Yes.
Okay.
The next,
All the-
The 29th.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify.
Meeting adjourned.